well. I hope you can hear me. Again, it's been a while since I've done this regularly, so I'm still like relearning how OBS works and all that fun shit. But welcome to my surprise. What did I even call this? Surprise Sunday stream? I don't know. Personally, with the way sim racing has been going this last decade, um, and my penchant for just randomly binging on old PS2 emulation shit, I don't really like scheduling or having like a dedicated playthrough of a game going because too often it can get derailed by like technical bugs and stuff like that. And my so instead I just figured, let's lean into the fact that I just play stuff at random. I won't even title the stream. And then we'll just get going. And whatever happens, happens. Whatever game we play, and it just kind of becomes this hangout place. So I hope you guys are okay with that. I really don't want to get back into like streaming full time because like I have a job. If you guys don't know, I am the game design director for Straight Force Studios. We're working on the what should I call this? The GTR reboot, which you've probably seen on talked about on Race Department and GT Planet and all kinds of different sim racing sites. So yes, I am working on that. I'm in a pretty big position for the development of that game. So anytime I stream, I'm probably going to be tired and not have a lot to do and have the motivation to do like full career playthroughs. And B, like anytime I do stream, because I'm in a position of somewhat importance at a dev, I have to be more careful than most in what I say, because people are obviously in the chat going to be asking questions on the game. And like we have a whole marketing department that decides what you can say and where you can say it and stuff like that. So I have to be cognizant of that, and I really don't like having all those restrictions. It is what it is, right? But I don't like having these list of things in the back of my mind that I can't talk about, or certain jokes I can't make because certain crowds are going to be offended by them. So it makes streaming have a bit of pressure on me, and I just don't like that. I like just fucking around on this stuff. But anyway, welcome to the shows. We're just going to hang out, and I have a unique format for tonight. I'm actually not going to drive anything. I just have a couple AI races I'm going to play in the background, and we're just going to shoot the bullshit. Kind of like Billy Strange does with his talk show. So just if you have any questions or topics you want me to touch on, post them in the chat. I have it set to live chat, so even guys who are not subscribed can send stuff and steer the conversation whichever way they want to. And we're basically just going to have some background footage going of races and P cars that I did recently, as well as I think we'll fire up a RaceRoom here later on. So get settled in, get some pop, chips, whatever you eat. I'm not a chocolate guy. Don't go for chocolate. And we'll just get going here. First topic of discussion, thank you for LB Makes Content for bringing this up. How are you feeling about the whole iRacing NASCAR console game? So I am super excited, which is super hypocritical for me. You guys know I do not have a good relationship with iRacing. I do not like them. I encourage people not to play their game because what they advertise versus what they deliver, I think, does not match their marketing. I believe, and this is me personally speaking, I believe the way they have real drivers promoting their stuff by saying, hey, I practice on this during my off days, versus what you can clearly see is R-Factor-based software running at their simulator centers, is a bit dishonest. It's very weird to see some stuff like that in action. I don't agree with that kind of marketing approach. But that all being said, and of course all the stuff I have against the protest system and just some of the things the community does, I'm just not a fan of that whole ecosystem. But I have to differentiate by saying this. I'm super happy they got the NASCAR license. I'm so excited for the game. I am so excited that it's in the correct hands. It's in the hands of passionate people. And this is the important part. When this releases as a commercial product, it's going to be separate from the iRacing ecosystem. So you won't need an iRacing sub or anything to play it. And it's probably going to be something you can crack open and fuck with. So if you don't like how the tire drives, which I don't, 90% of the cars in iRacing I can't stand and have no idea what's going on in their little ecosystem, that they've made cars with tires that if you get a little bit sideways, they immediately nuke themselves and you spin and die. If you don't like that, you can change that. Me personally, I play NASCAR 03 right now with EXE mods that change the physics of the game. And it's wonderful, and I have so much fun, and I have so much fun collecting mods. So I'm super excited for that game to come out in whatever state it does, whether it's an offshoot of the iRacing engine or whether it's just based on the Viper Racing engine, which is what all the Heat games and SRX and stuff are built on. and see what people end up doing with it. So I'm so excited. I'm super happy they got it. It's the right people to have that license. I cannot gush enough about how excited I am for that, despite how much I despise iRacing. It's so crazy. So iRacing, please don't sue me. I'm cheerleading for you here. I'm so happy you got this. Where can you still get P-Cars 2 with all the content legally missed out before Steam delisted, for fuck's sake? Yeah, um, Dave, you have a great question. Unfortunately, you just got to go through key sites. Key sites with a season pass or whatever we called it. It sucks the game got delisted that quick, but it is what it is. So your options are, unfortunately, key sites, which it is what it is. How is Jason Jacobe not banned on iRacing? Hopefully he isn't the same person. So it is the same person. I believe he's on house arrest right now. He got maliciously assaulted in jail by other inmates, and the family successfully argued that it's unsafe for him to be in jail because he is mentally ill. He rubs people the wrong way. He annoys people. And inmates were taking it out on him quite liberally, I guess. He got really messed up from it. So I think he's just on house arrest right now. And that is him. There is a line in the iRacing sporting code. If you want to protest him for being on the game, it's 2.1.2 is the rule. And the rule essentially states that, hey, part of the reason iRacing is designed where you have to use your real name is to facilitate an air of personal responsibility and to facilitate friendships. You can argue he's broken that rule because he uses people's personal information on the game not to make friends with them, but to stalk them and harass them. That is the rule you have to protest him for. iRacing has actually banned other people for doing the same thing or just being nuisances. I believe, do you guys remember Chris C. Miller from the Fixed IndyCar series? He used to be a regular in that series like 10 years ago. Empty Box has done a video on him. It's called You Drive Like a Dick. He's racing at Iowa. The video is about CCM. CCM used to get banned for months at a time for just rubbing people the wrong way. So if they're going to ban CCM for just driving like an ass in fixed IndyCar races, I don't know why they haven't banned Jason Jacobe. It's right in their rule book. So, I'm going to not read the comments for like 30 seconds here. I'm going to show you my P-Cars 2 custom install. None of what I'm about to show you is leaked or hidden content. This is all just mods. So what a lot of people don't know is that P-Cars 2 is a closed modding platform. It's difficult to mod it. It's not like Assetto Corsa where you just start fucking with INI files. Installing car mods in it takes a bit of time, but what you can do with the boot files that some people have put out, which enable you to add third-party cars to the game, is you can actually adjust all the car classes in the game. So I think I have a mod on Race Department that basically changes the car classes of a lot of the on-disk content or default SMS content, because personally I don't like how some of it was arranged. It was very Forza-fied, in that there was like road A, B, C, D, E for the various street cars, but it resulted in crazy shit, like the Ford F-150 racing against the Ford Escort, and I don't agree with that. So I actually sat down about 2 years ago and redid all of the car classes in the game. Basically to my own personal preference, and so they were more historically accurate, which yes, it means some cars are all by themselves in a class. But you'll see as I go through here the purpose of that. So, for example, there's a Clubman class that is basically GT Legends. There's a Coupe class, which is some car mods, as well as on-disc stuff, with some of these cars being converted from P-Cars 3 by modders, but basically just a two-door car. There's a DPI class that is converted from Razer. Again, I didn't do these. I downloaded these online, right? There's a DTM class. I forget where these cars are converted from. There's an exotic class, again, instead of road A, B, C, D, E, which I did not agree with and did not like. I basically put all the exotic cars you'd seen in an NFS game together. Formula 1, some of these cars are grouped together, which again I didn't agree with, so I split them all up into the correct seasons. So the 72 cars race against the 72 cars, the 78 or 77 car races against the 77 car. All of the Ferrari Challenge cars are split up into their own correct countries they race in. So you can run against just the specific USA liveries, the EU Challenge liveries, and the Asia Challenge liveries. By default, they're all grouped into one classes, which again I did not agree with for authenticity's sake. Going on here, some of the various Group 4, 5, 6, and A cars are all split up into their correct categories. And then when it comes to the Group C cars, something I did interesting, So P-Cars 2 has both high downforce spec Group C cars as well as Le Mans spec cars on the disc mixed into one Group C class, which makes running offline races against this AI really retarded because you're against low downforce cars that don't have a hope in hell in catching you on some of the tighter, twistier tracks. But then, of course, when you go run at Le Mans, you have high downforce cars that you just kick the shit out of. So I'm like, I don't like this. So I actually split them up between the LM spec and the high downforce spec, um, basically to clean up the class list. I also took out the Nissan GTP ZXT and put it in its own class, because for whatever reason, when we did the physics on that car, it just wipes the floor with all the other Group C cars, and I'm like, that's not right. Um, More stuff as we go on through the classes. Again, another fictional streetcar class with just kind of higher end supercars. I split all the GT cars into their own class. You can see someone converted the M3 GT2 car from the original Project cars. And GT3 I actually split up into 3 distinct classes. So GT3 is just all your kind of modern cars as well as some mod cars I got that represent GT3 racing as it existed in 2017 to 2018. I then took all the outdated cars that no one runs anymore and put them into their own class. So like the Ginetta G55, the SLS AMG, the Z4, the first gen Audi R8 LMS, the first gen McLaren 12C. They're in their own kind of like GT3 2011 class. And then the 24-hour cars, which I don't know why we included these in the game. It's literally just cars with extra lights and some different liveries. I put them into their own class. So I know it's kind of like autistic and like super attention to detail-y, but I just like the fact that when I pick like multi-class races in the game or I want to run against opponents of the same class, it's not why is this person in an SLS AMG GT3 that's now like super outdated. Do you guys know what I mean? I just don't like that, and I can just do that with mods. Moving on, there's the GT300 cars that we released as DLC for P-Cars 3 that someone converted to the game. There's some GTE cars with, again, a couple mods or cars converted from P-Cars 3. That's pretty cool. The GT1 cars converted from Shift to Unleashed, and then, again, more various classes. Some of these cars, again, are not balanced. I don't care. I just rather have relevant-looking cars all kind of grouped together. The hypercars are in their own category instead of road A or B, so the Trinity can race against each other. There's Hypercar GT with kind of like the track day variants of like the P1. Then we get into the IMSA stuff. I put the GTO cars in their own category. I put the Le Mans spec cars in their own category. I put the GTP cars, so the Eagle GTP and the Nissan GTP in their own class. Again, because that's who they raced against. I separated some of the Indy cars. There's just this random Japanese class with the street variants of DLC cars we released for P-Cars 3. The LMP1 cars I split up, so the 2014 spec cars, they're in their own class. The early 2010 LMP cars, they're in their own class. The 2016 cars are in their own class. It's basically to prevent, when you run, again, a race sorted by class, you want to prevent a situation where there's an R18 from 2014 and the new R18 on the grid. I'd honestly like to see more car classes done like this in more racing games. Yeah, like for me, I think why they did it for P-Cars 2, and I'm probably wrong about this, but was to kind of be like, hey, we have all these different car classes in the game, and we have all these different cars inside those classes, but it starts kind of shitting on the authenticity of the game just a little bit. So I just went and fixed that. So, same thing for the LMP2 cars. Same thing for LMP 900. Same thing for muscle cars. You have a Camaro, a Mustang, and a Challenger in there. Stock car has been renamed to NASCAR. There's a 1990 Lumina mod that now is its own car class. The Roadster class, all these weird cars like the Honda 2.4 Concept, the Mono, the Expo, and the Caterham 7620R, they're all in their own class just because they all kind of look the same. Supercar Dawn is kind of this fictional class I made with a bunch of late 80s, early 90s supercars. Trans Am has been split into 2 classes. Time Attack cars, SMS had a lot of like weird oddball cars they threw into P-Cars too, for some of their point-to-point tracks, so I just put them all in the same class. I separated, and some people won't agree with this, I separated the front-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive touring cars. I know it's weird, but it's just a quirk of mine. I didn't really know where to put the 86s, so I just put them in their own class. Trophy Truck gets its own class. I really should be calling it Rock Crawler, but whatever. The F-150 gets its own class. There's an ultralight category of like kind of track day radicals and Palmer Jaguars and Caterham, stuff like that. They all get their own class. V8s get their own class. Vintage Touring, it actually seems like I left alone, because this is one of the few classes I agreed with. I separated the World Sports Car stuff from the late 60s, early 70s. So I put the 330 P4 and the Mark IV together. I put the 1970s, I forget what class you would call this, but the prototypes together. And then I put the Le Mans spec cars together. And I didn't know what to do with the XJ220S. So it's in its own class. So basically, I ran through the entire game and was like, I don't like any of your classes. I'm going to fix them with the boot flow files. And now my game is really kind of structured more like a sim, and the classes are more realistic and not stupid. Next question. Hey Austin, what do you think of the Gen 4 cars on iRacing? They got the horsepower that people have been missing for 10 plus years, and I think they're pretty fun. Oh, you have triggered me. You should not have brought that up. As we look at the Ford Fusion in this game, which is a very pretty model. The Gen 4 cars in iRacing, I think, are fundamentally broken. And there's two reasons I think this. First of all, I actually do run iRacing under my friend's account. His name's Tyler. You can probably find him. It's not that difficult. So I'll go over to his house basically once a month and play a couple iRacing races. Sometimes Gen 4, sometimes Gen 7, sometimes the Legends cars. Legends cars are fantastic, by the way. The only cars I like in iRacing. So the Gen 4 cars, first of all, they're 2 seconds off pace per lap in qualifying trims. So in 2004, I think the fall race, so this is the one I think Jimmy Johnson won after the Hendrick plane crash. I think the pole was like in the 28s. Like there's a 28 point something that someone got the pole with in the fall of 04. When we qualified there for the Gen 4 Fixed Series, we were in like the high 30s, low 31s. So in qualifying, how are you 2 seconds a lap off pace? So then I ran the race, and of course everyone is dying. And it's noticeable when you play iRacing that people just die all the time. Going through the tri-oval, someone just wrecks. Coming out of turn 2 and the car unloads, someone just wrecks. And I can handle it because I'm pretty good at these games. I like to think I'm really good at these games. But it's noticeable that everyone is just fucking dying in those cars. And that's not realistic. Sorry, if that was realistic, there would be a fatality in every NASCAR race. And it would be so prevalent that it would be something you gambled on. So what I ended up finding is basically there's no bump. When we think of how a shock works, there's bump, which is your compression, and there's rebound, which is the car coming back up to its original height when the suspension unloads. So what ends up happening, and what I kind of felt driving laps at Tyler's house, is that there's no bump. The car doesn't actually squat down when you go into a corner and load up and distribute that weight the way it should. So you go into a corner, instead of the car setting, nothing actually happens, so it doesn't stabilize through the center of the corner. And rebound happens instantaneously. So you're going through the corner and it feels like it's a death trap. It's not bearing its load properly. And then when you come off the corner, rebound happens instantaneously, so the car just snaps on you. All the time. Basically without warning. So it feels like you're almost driving on ice the whole time. That's the sensation you get. I actually think this has nothing to do with the tires, which is sacrilegious for me to say. I think it's all with their shocks. I think that for whatever reason, the shocks literally don't work in iRacing. You go into a corner, you cannot feel the car compress and bear the weight of itself, and squat down and basically gain grip. That doesn't actually happen. The car just stays at its neutral height. But then when you come off the corner, off like a banking transition, the rebound, instead of happening gradually, it happens instantly, and it just causes you to just completely lose the rear end at like lightning pace, which is why everyone just dies off the corner. So to summarize, the Gen 4 car is not very good. So that's my thoughts on that. Have a good stream, man. We'll watch the VOD tomorrow. Thank you, Mr. Bluemix. Just going through the chat here. God, I wish the car classes in the new Forza were like this. The classes there are utterly retarded. Yes, I've seen that talked about in reviews too. For example, like there's V8 supercars and like an Audi TT front-wheel drive car in the GT3 class. It's weird. What are your thoughts on the Le Mans NASCAR? It's cool. It's really cool. Hey, what do you think about the new Forza now that you have played it? Oh, Jesus. So I really like my opening night with it. I think the race cars, especially the Mazda 787B, which I have a ton of time in AC, really, really fun. The game hardly runs on my PC, and it hardly runs on other people's PCs too. And between the FPS issues and the like large objects disappearing, like even the ground disappears when I play it, I literally can't play Forza for more than like 10 minutes before I have to turn it off and be like, this is broken right now. And that sucks because I paid the $140 for the Super Duper edition. Hey Austin, would you consider making a video similar to Monster Truck Games: The Legacy of Failure, but with NHRA and IHRA games? That's not a bad idea, but there's so few people who care right now. Monster Trucks have a huge worldwide fan base, whereas drag racing, it's very, very niche, but it's a good topic. So I'm going to play a couple AI races while I just read the chat. Again, it's something to hang out. You guys have fun here. Shoot the bullshit. Suggest topics for me to talk about. And we're just going to watch some AI races I did. This apparently I did like last September. But it's a cool combo. The F50 GT at, what's this place called? Monaco. Not a Azure circuit. Clearly not a Azure circuit. Oh man. Why is there so much corruption and cancel culture in the iRacing community? I have to be terse about how I answer this question. Racing attracts a lot of nerds as fans. Some guys are on the spectrum, some aren't. I mean, that is what it is. There's nothing wrong with it. But for lack of a better word, some of these guys are really stringent rule followers. And that mixed with what has happened to the U.S. education system and what's happened in online spaces has not really bid well for like certain online game demographics. It just is what it is. Actually, how do I put this? There's even a better way to describe this. And I think I posted a little cryptic community post about this a couple weeks ago. iRacing and a lot of racing sims in general, because of the amount of hours required to actually get good at them and become proficient in them, whether you're a good driver or not, just to learn your way around these games, it doesn't really attract the gearheads who work on cars during the season and want to play games in the off season. Do you know what I mean? Like, mechanics aren't playing these games. Because the skill ceiling is so high and the skill gap is so high, and because it does take a while to learn these games, it attracts a lot of terminally online people, which can be a good thing, because it means that your fans are super passionate about the game. But it also means that terminally online people are more predisposed to developing really extreme political viewpoints on either side of the spectrum. And I think myself and Ted Ho talked about this a couple years ago. You end up running into people who are like straight up communist. Does that make sense? You end up running into people who are like obsessed with like My Little Pony or Harry Potter because like they literally live their entire lives online. So it results in a lot of strange interactions that like don't actually happen in a race shop. Does that make sense? Preach. I left teaching after 5 years back in 2022, and I'm so glad I left that sinking ship behind. Yeah, it's both a public school system that unfortunately has been invaded by Marxists. Yep, I'm one of those people. Sorry, guys. It is what it is. But it's also that more and more kids are terminally online and like becoming discombobulated with what's considered a normal line of thinking. Again, the amount of kids you discover online on Twitter who are like unironically like align themselves with like communism and like think that's the solution. It's very strange. So those people essentially binge on games that require long hours of dedication, and it makes for a very strange community. Is what it is. again, in some ways it can be a good thing too, because when you sell a game, any sort of game in a genre where you require people to put in long hours, you're going to attract people who do put in those long hours, as opposed to people who just ditch the game and are like, I don't want to fucking play this, like, that's a grind. But it's just something we have to be cognizant about. North America sounds like a fucking dream. I'm glad I don't have to deal with this. It is what it is. Yeah, I have to be very careful of what I say now. Both because I feel like as I'm getting older, I have more of a duty to try and articulate myself the correct way. But it really is the terminally online types who just lose calibration of like what's considered normal. And for lack of a better word, there's a really good 4chan screenshot of a green text that describes this pretty perfectly. 20 years ago, before the internet was like big, if you like had a thing for fucking toasters, you eventually got over it and became you grew up and became normal. Nowadays, if you have a thing for fucking toasters, you go online and find a group of 800 other people who are into fucking toasters, and then you proceed to ruin your life because you just hang out with them all the time. And they just encourage you to just indulge in that headspace. That rant was not about fucking toasters. It was just about any sort of weird line of thinking that does not exist in the real world. I noticed plenty of the community is terminally online when I got banned from Rhino GT4's Discord server for not being on board with harassing or cutting off friends who play the Harry Potter game. Yeah, JC, you're a good guy from the times I've talked to you. Now you're kind of seeing what I mean. There's definitely a divide between dudes who like race cars that I would say are like 80% of the community, and maybe 20% of guys who are terminally online. And like I said, I use the phrase terminally online, because like that doesn't just mean like, oh, they have one certain political ideology or one sort of like social ideology. It's just kids who are like binging on computers to an unhealthy extent. It's just any rule broken or any mistake. I presume this is on iRacing, gets you stalked or protested for everything for months. That's what happened to me. Yeah, and that's just the result of iRacing's real names requirement. Like, their heart was in the right place. I actually don't disagree with the idea of using real names, but I don't think iRacing themselves really looked into their crystal ball hard enough to be like, okay, what happens if in like 10 to 15 years, like, we just have a bunch of like terminally online kids playing our game who just like do not give a shit, and they're like, you know, I know your name is John Smith, and I know you live in Tallahassee, Florida, and I found your wife, you know, and I found where you work. They never really imagined something like that, which is odd, because as a millennial growing up in the mid-2000s, once computers started to get big and stuff like Nexopia and MySpace got big, we got pretty routine talks from teachers being like, hey, there are some fucked people on the internet. Don't give them all your personal information. Just don't. Like, it'll go badly. We have strayed from God's light. just a bit. You know what I mean? So what you're saying, each weird niche group stuck within their own groups and jerk each other off? That is correct, my man. You have nailed that. It sucks, man. I remember a slightly different period when it just wasn't like that. Even though I was young, I kind of got to experience the tail end of it playing like Rigs or Odds Monster Trucks, and it was just fun, man. Everyone's got like a dumb screen name. You don't really know who people are unless you like talk to them for like months on end. And they're like, actually, my name is this person, and I live here. It was a cool time, you know. Xbox, the golden age of the Xbox 360 from like, I would say 2006 to maybe 2011, it was beautiful. Another Jim Franklin post question: what happened to Jacobe? He's on house arrest. He got beat up in jail. His parents argued that he should be on house arrest because it's not safe for him to be in regular jail. He actually got beat up quite badly. Even though he's messed up my life temporarily, I actually feel bad for him because the justice system is clearly not working in his favor or like rehabilitating him how it should, and it just put him in a bunch of really unsafe situations. I know it sounds like weird for me to say, but like, you don't need to get your face broken by like hardcore criminals in jail because you upload weird schizo videos on YouTube. You know, like, there's a line. I feel bad for his family in that state because it's not going well. These people that get obsessed with drivers to the point where they act like K-pop stans and dox harass people over the most minor negativity against and such, and shuts driver a major problem as well. Yeah, Red Bull Sour Patronos, you have a stupid name, but I see you pop up all the time, and you're right. The stuff that's been going on, especially with Noah Gragson earlier this year, which I made a video on, but I deleted it because it wasn't up to my standards of quality. That's all it boils down to, guys. I'm kind of an autist with that stuff. The idea that we now have like 15-year-old NASCAR fans just obsessively combing through like Twitter is strange. Especially because like the more you dig, literally every driver should be canceled. Matt Hagan, Tony Stewart's driver in the NHRA, follows like a bunch of like white nationalist pages on Instagram, or stuff that could be construed as white nationalism and like could get him in a lot of trouble. So there's your funny car points leader just taken out of the championship. Martin Truex Jr. follows PragerU, which is very anti-LGBT, or posts stuff that could be construed as anti-LGBT, and it's just open. Like, he just follows it. When I click on like our mutual followers, it's the first thing that pops up is PragerU. So suddenly Martin Truex is override. Shane Van Gisbergen, some of the thoughts he follows on Instagram will like pop up in my suggested feed, and like some of their like club slut outfits will be like liked by SVG97 and 10,000 others kind of thing. It's really bad. So I hope NASCAR and just other auto racing sanctioning bodies kind of act reasonably towards this, because this is a rabbit hole you don't want to go down, because literally everyone would be gone. Even the big one, like, half of NASCAR Cup drivers still follow Donald Trump. And, like, as you can imagine, I live in Alberta. I don't mind the guy. You know, his values align with mine. But the way the U.S. media works, you could theoretically say that every driver who follows Donald Trump, and even his son Donald Trump Jr., supported a U.S. insurrection again. I don't agree with that stance, but you could make that argument, and suddenly half the drivers in the Cup Series are gone because they're anti-democracy. Right? It could get really crazy. Yeah, that SVG part caught me off guard during your video. It's funny, man. Like, the Instant Explore page, if you really pay attention to how it works and how the algorithm works and what's going on, you can see some funny shit, man. Shane has good taste in women, though, so I'm not really complaining. Matt DiBenedetto follows TP USA. That's what I mean, right? Like, if you actually start digging into what these drivers follow, 2/3 of them would just be gone. And if someone made, like, a proper stink about it, and then we'd have a really serious problem. Half of the stuff you've mentioned is basic bitch conservative stuff. It's in no way far right. Even while Mr. Red Bull Sour Patronus anime guy, that's the thing. What's considered far right is being shifted basically every day of every hour. Or every hour of every day, right? It's not about what a normal person would consider far right. It's the fact that American media is crazy, and like, working out is sometimes, there's articles written that working out is far right. Drinking milk is far right. Wanting a wife to be a stay-at-home mom is far right. If you support Trump, which is the thing I've seen on Instagram the last few days, the FBI is trying to classify it as an extremist group, right? So that's a little terrifying. They keep moving the goalpost, and suddenly, again, 2/3 of NASCAR drivers could theoretically be suspended based on NASCAR's very vague social media policy, which is just really, really funny. It's not good. NASCAR is becoming such a joke with all the political pandering, and stage racing killed that for me. Um, it really started to happen before the political pandering. It was the chase ruined everything. We just didn't know it yet. Because it was at a time where there were so many superstar drivers, like Dale Jr. in his late 20s, Matt Kenseth in his prime, young Kyle Busch, Kurt Busch in his prime, Dale Jarrett kind of in the twilight of his career. Like, it was just such a good series that, like, no one really cared. And then when all the popular drivers started retiring, so like late 2000s, early 2010s, along with the Gen 5 / Gen 6, whatever you want to call it, it was like a slow burn. It was like, you almost woke up like, I would say like 5 or 6 years after 2004, and you're like, what the fuck happened to NASCAR? Like, why is Junior in the 88 car for Hendrick? Why is Toyota here? It was just a very slow burn from, wow, NASCAR is awesome, I don't want to watch it every weekend, to, this is getting weird now. European news is as worse, maybe even worse. Yeah, it's crazy. Off topic, but what do you think of Test Drive Solar Crown? No, that is not off topic. That is on topic. The last 10 minutes have been off topic. So I've posted this in the past, but I really love the Test Drive Unlimited games. I thought they were just awesome, especially to play with friends, because it was kind of this like weird metaverse before metaverse, but I'm just not excited in Solar Crown. Street racing games, in my opinion, need a reboot. It's just kind of turned into this all-encompassing sandbox where the cars, fuck, how do I rant about street racing games as a whole? They all have shitty storylines that are annoying. The games are never challenging. Like, every road network that, regardless of whether it's Need for Speed or Test Drive Unlimited or Forza Horizon put in, the roads are always too wide and too easy. You can never, like, get in any trouble, in terms of, like, spinning the car out. You can do, like, crazy shit with the car, like infinite NOS boost or do, like, 1,000-foot jumps. Basically, like, you're the magic fucking school bus. Which, okay, like, that's fine for an 8-year-old, but, like, you're only 8 once. You know, you're an adult for a lot longer than you are 8. So a lot of the games just feel childish to me. And then in terms of the metagame, like, a good example is the Forza Horizon games. Like, within an hour of starting the game, you have 25 cars and $10 million, or something ridiculous like that. There's no grind. Buying cars doesn't feel special. This kind of goes back to the plot point, but, like, you just thrown money. There's really no way to fuck up the metagame in terms of, oops, I accidentally spent too much money. Because you're just constantly throwing prizes and cars and XP and all kinds of horseshit like that. And then when it comes to actually customizing your car, like, a lot of the parts you're given, both for your character as well as your car itself, are just tacky. You know, like the Crew 2 is a good example. Like, I don't want neon blue wheels. Like, I don't want my tires to be neon. Like, can I just make like a cool looking car that, like, I could plausibly own one day if GT Revival sells well, you know? Like, give me that, not like rainbow colored burnout smoke and an effect that plays when I hit the nitro and there's little polygons or like triangle shapes that shoot out from the header pipes. Like, please stop. Like, why can't I just make something like look modest and cool? So that's kind of how I feel about street racing games. So when I see stuff like the Crew Motorfest announced or Test Drive Solar Crown announced, I'm just like, this is... I'm not 8 anymore, like, I'm 30. Like, can I have something slightly more mature where, like, if I wreck, you know, like, it matters? Or, like, I have to think about, like, how much money I should save for going through career mode? Like, it's just really annoying. Are you considered a car guy since you're into racing games? No, I'm actually not much of a car guy, like, in terms of working on them. Even at, like, my shitty amateur level, like, I'm a pay driver. That's all it is. I own my own car, but, like, I pay my buds to work on it, you know? A case of beer, some cash, whatever. If they need, you know, like, even something dumb, like a dump run done. It's like, yep, you can use my truck. The more I've raced, though, the more I'm starting to learn more about how they work and kind of enjoy it. So I'm definitely more knowledgeable than I was 3 or 4 years ago, and I can diagnose problems way quicker than I used to be able to, which is really cool. Hey, that's a good question. Um, have you ever played the Driver series? Yeah, I played Driver 1. That was one of the hardest games I ever played as a kid. The test in the parking garage, like that was genuinely difficult for me. But the key thing is I remember it. I didn't get very far into story mode because I was like 8 at the time. Yeah, that's about right. I was born in '92. Game came out in '99 or 2000. Yeah, I would have been 8. I just remember it being really fucking hard. It was kind of neat. How do you feel about the new EA, WRC, and iRacing getting the console rights to iRacing, or NASCAR, you mean? Already talked about that. Super happy for iRacing and NASCAR. WRC, so WRC, rally games and drift games I'm not interested in because, in my opinion, it's not ergonomically friendly to play a game with a handbrake component, and you don't have a handbrake. I unfortunately don't have a handbrake, so, and I also don't like pressing like the circle button on the wheel. It just feels weird. So I tend to not play rally games. I probably should get a handbrake, though. I think it's cool EA got the license. I think that's what should have happened. It's very weird, like, two companies I despise, EA and iRacing, both get these major licenses, and I'm like, yes, that's awesome. I'm becoming strange in old age. Please help. Do you know Juiced? It had career you might like. Yeah, I gotta get into that. I've been meaning to boot up Juiced for a while. That's one game I never owned as a kid. But every time I saw like previews of it when I was younger, I'm like, this looks really good. And apparently it runs pretty well on like Windows 10 or Windows 11 stuff now. So I'll have to fuck with it again. Thoughts on Assetto Corsa 2 being announced? I heard it won't be Unreal 4, but their own engine this time. AC's got a really tough hill to climb. Because you gotta think, there's AC as it exists on Steam that you can buy and play, and then there's the AC that exists in people's minds, right? You know, AC is not just some cars and some European tracks and a couple of, like, bare-bones modes. It's now this, like, do-everything game with the help of 10 years of modding, right? And most of what people love about AC is not AC itself, but this crazy, passionate mod community, which is like 99% ripped content and people just like fucking with the game and seeing what they can make it do. So what's probably going to end up happening is it's probably not going to meet people's expectations because, like, Kunos would have to code in everything the community has done for 10 years, and, like, no developer can do that. So I think what's going to happen is people are going to get their hands on it and be like, this is a letdown. And it's like, well, yeah, because, you know, AC as it exists in people's minds is not just vanilla AC. It's the accumulation of 10 or 11 years of the mod community going nuts with it and making it do all sorts of things that Kunos never even dreamed of. When it comes to Unreal stuff, though, it's probably a good thing they went with their own engine, because Unreal, at least from what I've seen from other devs, like, ACC took years to get into, like, whipped into shape so it ran good on most people's PCs, and same with Ren Sport too, right? People are, like, running Ren Sport on, like, 4090s, and they're like, yeah, it doesn't look great. So maybe the long-term strategy is not Unreal, I'm not quite sure, but there seems to be precedent that people are struggling to what's it called? Use it in a way for racing games. I want to ask, should I hold off getting Forza Motorsport since I've been hearing a bunch of bad stuff about it? Yeah, that's not the worst idea. I really like how it drives. It's kind of like a simpler version of AC, especially with the race cars, but they got some technical problems right now. And, like, pretty fundamental ones, too. Like, you could end up getting it and being like, why doesn't this game hold a steady frame rate? This is not great. What do you think is going to happen to the IndyCar game? Postponed or dead? I don't know. I haven't kept up a lot on the motorsport game stuff, just because it's like... Remember, I found a lot of this stuff about them as a company, like, years ago. And by found, I mean someone connected to the company tipped me off on Twitter and told me, hey, research all of this stuff. So I think someone in their own company was feeding stuff to me. I can't go and find that again, though, because my Twitter account got permanently banned for saying I have hose in different area codes, which is now factually accurate. Oh well. But yeah, I haven't really paid attention to what's going on with Motorsport games just because I have my own stuff to work on, and like everything we kind of predicted to happen was gonna happen. Like, you know, NASCAR license is with someone else now, and the IndyCar game was kind of in development hell, and they're just sort of releasing a Le Mans game on the R Factor 2 engine, which I don't know how that's gonna go. Apparently you have to set up a dedicated server to do online instead of Corsa, which sucks. Yeah, the way AC handles online is honestly not great. Now, my one friend explained that basically once you set it up, you're ready to go. You only have to do it once. But when you go from hosting, you know, lobbies in like P-Cars or even Project Gotham Racing, and it's in the game, you press the create lobby button and you invite your friends and you start racing, it sucks having to do all these extra steps. Ren Sport is like 87% a scam. LMAO says Chesta. No, so I have a really nuanced opinion on Ren Sport. I actually don't think they have any ill will towards the genre. Based on the time at which the game rolled out and just what was happening in the tech scene at that time, and some of the remnants and stuff that's talked about in their user interface, what I actually believed happened with Ren Sport is really nuanced. And again, it's not malicious. Prior to us learning what Ren Sport is, that was that period of time in gaming and just the technology scene where like NFTs and crypto were like big. Obviously, we know now that like this stuff didn't pan out, but at the time, a lot of tech companies were like full steam ahead on NFT and crypto stuff. So I personally believe, I don't even care if this is right or not, but this is just my opinion, that Ren Sport was going to be an NFT and crypto project. So they went full speed ahead on developing it. They licensed R Factor code, basically so they could get the game up and running. And they had the idea, at least in my opinion, that it was going to be like an NFT crypto racing sim. So like, each car would be an NFT, and let's say you paid crypto to enter races, and then you made prize money off of those races based on how you finished, right? Everyone follow me here? At some point along development, it started coming out that you should not do this. Because as we all know, none of this metaverse stuff ever panned out. NFT stuff is worthless now. Crypto stuff is worthless now. And I think they started realizing that and went, oh, fuck. We can't do this. Like, if we launch our product with this stuff in it, goodbye to the brand. So I believe, my opinion, they pivoted at the very last minute to just be like, let's just make a mod-friendly racing sim. You know, we're already running ISI tech, won't be that hard for people to do, and then we'll pivot it towards an esports platform. And they did, and that's where they are right now. How do I expand on this? You can still kind of see remnants of the NFT and crypto stuff in the game, at least from what I've watched on people's streams, because isn't there, like, when you first sign up for the game, or, oh, actually, press the gas pedal there and fast forward things. When you, like, first sign up for the beta, it's like, pick a car to own. And then it gives you, like, an even, or something like that, for that specific vehicle. To me, that reads as if they hacked 99% of the NFT stuff out of the game, but there's still a couple UI elements referencing it. But they just pivoted to esports. So it is what it is. Does that make sense? So they just pivoted to esports, and we're like, oh, we'll just make it a modding platform like AC, and it's based on ISI with Unreal graphics, so it'll look a lot better, and just whatever. You know, we'll pivot to that direction. Now, the problem with that stuff is that, hey, Assetto Corsa is already an established mod platform. You know, everyone is like playing AC to death, and they really don't want to move because of sunk costs. You know, all these modders have put years of their life into learning how AC works. They probably don't want to do it again for another game. You know, they're probably just going to stick with what they know. It just is what it is. And then on the esports side of things, I personally believe that they were misled by industry articles talking about how successful esports are. but didn't really go into the intense research needed to be like, hey, like, no one really cares about this stuff. Does that make sense? You know, um, they probably just saw a lot of articles about how successful League of Legends esports was or Counter-Strike esports was, and we're like, oh, let's just do that because that's where gaming's heading. And not looking into like the actual view counts of like iRacing esports, where it's like they're lucky to get like 10,000 views on a race. Um, they didn't. To me, it just reads like they didn't really have anyone on board who was super cynical and being like, guys, this Coca-Cola esports thing that they do with NASCAR and iRacing that they have like this huge prize pool for, the view count is like less than a minor league baseball team. You know? Just saying. But that's the route they've gone down, so it is what it is, right? Wow, Billy Strange is here. We have a famous person in the chat. Everyone say hi to Billy. We called it, they danced around it, then it became untenable. Regarding the crypto NFT stuff, yeah. Like I said, I believe they built the game with the intention of it being this NFT crypto project, and then at the last moment they're like, dude, we can't do this. We're gonna have to pivot into just a traditional racing sim. Which, the other side of that thing is, I believe they started this esports stuff because instead of having to pay, you know, like iRacing or Assetto Corsa like a licensing fee to use their software in esports events, they're like, oh, we'll just build our own software that's proprietary, so we control everything, which is actually quite intelligent. That way you don't have to just keep paying iRacing gobs of money to run this random esport. You can say it's your own thing and not have to pay that money. But again, the bigger question they should have asked is, like, how many people are actually watching this stuff? Even the esports drivers don't like the game. It just feels like shit to drive, apparently. Yeah, I haven't tried it yet. I know one of my buddies does video editing for James Baldwin sometimes in his Yarno Opmir's video editor. And I guess the videos I've watched Baldwin do on Ren Sport, he always gives these kind of like backhanded remarks to it, being like, that's not really how a GT3 car drives, because Baldwin has run like the Spa 24 hours and stuff like that. So yeah, there's a lot of like backhanded comments, but like at the end of the day, like they're competing for, or they're under contract with esports orgs, like they have to play the game, and there's certain stuff they just can't say about it. DJ EJ just causes drama, ain't even a real YouTuber. I like DJ EJ, he's a good guy. Also, I feel most sim racing esports' biggest problem is presentation. Like most streams I see besides F1 esports, just like Dog with Garbo commentary. I mean, it's tough because sim racing esports kind of acts as like, how do I put this? A dress rehearsal for like other stuff. So, sim racing esports is not meant to be, how do I put this? The big, grandiose presentation that it's envisioned to be. It's more like for people to build like audition tapes. So, for example, like a commentator, you could spend a couple years commentating like a sim racing esport, and then parlay that into, hey, you apply for the job as like your local minor league baseball team's commentator, like the PA guy. And you can build a resume with sim racing esports being like, hey, I did this for 2 or 3 years. I call into this league. We got this amount of views on YouTube. I know what I can and can't say. Like, I'm not nervous in front of a mic. Here's my basically audition tape. I know it's virtual race cars, but give me a shot. Does that make sense? I think it's for stuff like that, but like the amount of people who could realistically use that as like a stepping stone is like less than 100 people worldwide, right? So to kind of give some background on what's going on the screen right now, I ran this race 2 or 3 days ago. This is the VRC 87 Camaro. I don't know what the hell they called it. It is a payware mod for P cars. It's not bad. I like it. I think the problem with sim racing esports is that successful esports are not based on things you can't do in real life. Sports sims are never going to be as popular because they're competing versus IRL. Yeah, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. Here's the thing. I believe sim racing esports at this point is just a tax write-off, you know? A very simple tax write-off to show that you operate a portion of your business at a loss. Cool. That's fine. But this is what I explained when talking with some people in the industry. We are, like, actually spoiled for the amount of racing, like, real-life racing we can watch. Like, you go on YouTube, it's not just, oh, you can watch NASCAR Cup Series highlights. It's like, you can watch Xfinity, you can watch trucks, you can watch Arco Menards, you can watch any late-model main event from any track in North America. You can watch, like, boomers uploading, like, dirt late-model races from 1995 that they went to and recorded with the family VHS camera, right? You can watch practice for basically any professional series. You can watch qualifying. Most racing series have an archive of previous, you know, years' races. Like, you can go on NASCAR.com and look up their archives and be like, I want to watch this random race from 1989. You can just do that. So why would I watch virtual cars? Like, you are spoiled for choice to a degree that, like, it is basically, you know how when, like, people talk about dying and going to heaven? And being like, oh, imagine if we can, like, travel back in time and just go wherever we want and, like, see anything at any point in history. Like, what concert would you go to? What race would you go to? You can literally do that with YouTube now. Just be like, oh, this monster truck show that happened in 2001 at Wall Township Speedway, I'm going to watch the whole thing because some boomer recorded it with the family video camera and put it on YouTube. Okay. You know? So when you're spoiled for choice to that degree, like, why would you watch sim racing esports? Hey, may I ask why you don't have the in-game feed for the length of the screen? I can't figure out how to stream on YouTube in 21:9. That's, the level of incompetence we're dealing with here right now. Hold on, guys. Give me, like, 30 seconds. I gotta grab a drink. There we go. Chugging my iced coffee. And the reason I watch sim racing esports is because I like certain drivers and want to learn something. If it wasn't in the scene, I probably wouldn't care. From vague being. Yeah, that's a good point. If my friend is in a race, or like I know someone who knows someone in a race, or something of that regard, I will basically just put on the stream as, like, background noise. Be like, oh, like, this dude I know is racing in this, like, weird series. Like, when Tyler runs his league races on iRacing, I forget what series he used to race under. I would just, like, have it on because it's something to watch on, like, a Tuesday, you know? But, like, once hockey season starts, obviously I'll have hockey games on. But, like, Tyler would run his, like, league race in the Gen 7 car on Monday nights, and I'd be like, oh, they're streaming it, and there's 17 viewers. Like, I'll watch that. Like, I'll see how you do. But the idea that, like, I would bandwagon it and make it, like, part of my schedule the way people make, like, watching NHL games for their city's team part of their schedule is, like, that's not happening, bro. Do you play any hockey yourself? No, I can't skate at all. I've tried several times, and I just don't get it. A lot of the guys I race with play men's league hockey out of season. For me, racing and sim racing is enough. Thoughts on Formula E? That's a good question. I actually don't mind Formula E. I don't think they should advertise it with the whole go green mentality they use. Um, I think it's hilarious though. I spent a lot of time driving those cars when we developed P Cars 3, and then I think I bought the DLC for R Factor 2. It's hilarious. It's the only thing is like living in North America, it's really hard to watch some of the races because it's like, oh, um, practice 1 is being streamed on YouTube. It's 1 a.m. And like for me, like I don't like watching sports on tape delay. Like I like watching them live, even if it's like at a weird time. Like I just want to see it happen. So I'm like, I'm up to date with what's going on. I don't like being those ninnies who are like, no, don't spoil it for me, and like have to carefully browse the internet to avoid spoilers of what happened in the race. Like I think that's lame. Ooh, which sim racing game do you play the most? Um, for the longest time it was Assetto Corsa, even though I don't particularly like it. They just had the best platform for online racing, so I got really good at AC. Um, outside of that, the one I spent the most time in, like over the past years, probably SRX the game. This summer, though, I really didn't spend a lot of time playing any racing sims. Just because the real racing schedule, this is pretty much our first year back with a full schedule since COVID was a thing. Don't get me started on that. So, like, the amount of driving I did some weekends, it's like a 90-minute drive to Rimby. You run 2 heats in the main each night. Some of the weekends were like um, 2 events in a weekend, so we run the Friday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday, and then the 90-minute drive home. Um, that was just a lot of driving. So like Monday morning would come, and I'm like, I don't want to see a race car. So there's that, and then the summer fling, she's 3 hours away, so it's a 6-hour round trip. And that's a lot of driving too. So again, I just don't want to drive any more than I have to. But we ran, I think for the mini stocks, we ran 24 races this year, like 24 race nights. So like I got a fair amount of driving in. And then it very quickly turned into like I would try and boot up Assetto Corsa. And it's almost like the difference between like porn and actual sex. I know it's a really weird analogy, but like hear me out here. Like all of just the little details and like the fun like goofy shit that comes with driving a race car. Like, oh, that person in front of me is blowing up. I can smell their oil, you know? And how much fun it is to save tire in real life, and how much fun it is to push and ride. A lot of racing sims, you don't get that. You just hot lap as hard as you can, and run a pixel perfect line as hard as you can. And if you just mess up less than the other guy, you win the race. That's really not how racing in real life works. So I would like try and sit down and play Assetto Corsa, and then 10 minutes I'd be just like, this sucks. Like this isn't what it's like to race. Yeah, 24 race days is a good chunk of racing. Well, that's what happens when you run like a I'd call it like an opening act kind of car, like a mini stock. You're just on the bill every night. So like, oh, it's this big invitational sprint car event. Well, they need an opening class. Mini stocks are on the bill. Oh, it's a big late model race. Mini stocks are on the bill. Oh, IMCA mod race for a bunch of money. Mini stocks are on the bill. So when you're a support class running that many nights, you're just like kind of tired. Did you ever touch the World Outlaws game? No, I don't have a PS4 or PS5. I wish they released it on PC so badly. I would be addicted to it. It'd be really bad. Didn't even know SRX had its own game. Might have to give it a try. Yeah, so it is run by... what's the word I'm looking for? It was put out by Monster Games, who did the NASCAR Heat stuff, as well as Viper Racing from 1998. It's really good. Cars have too much lateral grip. Whatever. for what it is so much fun. King Casmo asks, that's a good question. Do you still use the Hero 4 Session Black to record your IRL races? Yeah, that camera's fantastic, man. Having started asphalt mini stock racing this year, I agree on the sensory overload you get IRL. You can never replicate in a sim. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm getting at. You jump into a sim, and it's like, this is boring. Like, it is hilarious driving a little four-banger that we've done some engine work to, and it is screaming going into turn one. And you're like, please don't explode. I'd like to win this race. It's just funny. And then you jump into like a same or similar powered car in a racing sim, and it's like, why isn't this fun? Like, something's missing here. Can you move up the ladder in Canadian racing? Not really. It goes from running cheap entry-level cars to $250,000 a year to run Pinty Series. Okay, so I'm gonna switch games here, and hopefully my shit doesn't crap out. Pray for me. Boot up RaceRoom here. So yes, this is my background. Let's see if I can boot RaceRoom. Watch some AI races in there. Thanks for coming to hang out. I'm not done yet, I promise. Just booting a different game, because I'm one of those guys who has the replay auto-saving system always set to on. So anytime I run like an offline race, I just have like a library of replays I can watch when I'm bored. Which is kind of what gave me the idea. I know some people have seen like the AI commentary stuff we've been working on for our GT Revival game that did the rounds in February. That was kind of where I got the idea for that thing. It's like, I wish I had a purpose for like saved replays, and like I could just watch them when I'm bored, as opposed to like taking pictures of my car or whatever, and then being like, well, I'm never watching that again, and pressing delete. Like, it would be cool if like I could watch my old save replays and have like AI voices commentate over it like I'm watching a TV broadcast. Like, that would be sweet. And then it started steamrolling into, do you realize no one's invented that yet? Do you know how to write a patent application? I'm like, no, I don't. And then I was asked to learn how. That was my February of this year. 100 horsepower in real life is more fun than 400 horsepower in games. That is absolutely correct. My car puts out just under 200, and it is comical how much fun it is. Let's try and add a source here. I hope this works. Whee! Can you guys see that? Excellent. So one of my favorite racing sims that really doesn't get enough credit is RaceRoom Racing Experience. I know it does not look great. I know the content pricing model is a little weird, and you basically have to get the game on discount so you can just buy everything in one go and treat it like it's a normal PC sim. This game is fantastic though. It drives so good. Even though they're like one of our main rivals, they're fantastic. I don't know what I clicked. Oh yeah, you can click like the background menu. Let's make this a little smaller. Sorry boys. As you can tell, I am not prepared. My bad. There. Satisfies my OCD. Thoughts on F1 just in general? I do not watch Formula 1. So as you can see, I fuck with this game quite a lot. Some of these I gotta clean up. That's a lot. Oh, I can watch old online races. That's hilarious. That was so funny. Cool, we'll watch a couple online races. That's awesome. So this is one I did 2 nights ago in the DTM 2021 car set. And I've never driven Salzburgering before, so I sat down. I think this was Friday night, and I'm like, I'm gonna learn Salzburgering because I have nothing to do this weekend. And I ran an AI race, so I guess we're gonna watch it now. Then we'll watch a couple online races after. Something to do. Hang out, talk, shoot the shit. Let the chat go chaotic. Doesn't always have to be about sim racing talk. I just like hanging out with you guys. It's nice not being on Reddit and dealing with a bunch of rules and check out my sim rig, guys. And it's nice not having to deal with some of the mainstream sim sites where they're like, they're overly moderated. Like, I don't really give a shit what you say in here. Random question: what manufacturer in NASCAR do you like the most, past or present? I'm a Dodge guy. I grew up a Dodge guy. I have no favorite manufacturer right now. Thoughts on Live for Speed? Needs more tracks, man. I love the fact that they have custom car mods. TV. How do I... Okay, whatever. So I'm the blue AlphaTauri Ferrari. Live for Speed needs way more tracks, but the car mods are pretty awesome. You and Billy Strange are my go-to for honest opinions about racing games. Aw, thank you. Someone asked about what music I'm into. I don't remember who that was. But that's actually a pretty good question. I guess I'll just go in order of what I saw this year. So the lady and I saw Blink 182 when they came here. We had front row for that. That was a crazy show. Hopefully the volume of this game's not too loud. Sorry, I just alt-tab that real quickly here. So we saw Blink 182. I saw Megadeth and Bullet for my Valentine in the spring. Had very close to front row for that. Me and my buddy saw Iron Maiden last weekend when they came here. I'm not even a big Iron Maiden fan, but we just went because tickets were really fairly priced. It was like, I think $75 a head to get in. So I'm like, yeah, we're absolutely going to that. I don't remember what the tour's called. I think it's like the Future Past tour or something. There's a lot of stuff they didn't play, but I guess they tour so frequently that they don't actually play their hits all the time when you see them. So like, we never heard Number of the Beast, never heard Run to the Hills, nothing of that sort. So there's that. I see Metallica a bunch of times. Saw them on the Hardwired tour. Saw them twice when they came here when they were filming that weird Through the Never movie. That was filmed partially in my city. I saw Airborne this time last year. That was one of the craziest concerts I've ever been to. They did all the stuff that was in like the late 2000s EA games, like Running Wild, Stand Up for Rock and Roll, Girls in Black. They were in a ton of EA games. I saw them live, front row for that. That show was phenomenal. And I didn't hear properly for like 2 or 3 days. Joel O'Keefe is crazy. I've seen Lights like 5 or 6 times. It's a Canadian pop singer, kind of like an indie rock singer that was really big here during like the tail end of like the music video era. Who else have I seen? I saw The Offspring last fall. I've seen Gob a couple of times. Maybe just once. So like a lot of like classic rock, metal. I don't really like modern like new metal or stuff like that. Bullet for My Valentine's really the only guys who fall into that category because to me they just sound like Metallica and Drop C. It's listenable. It's not just blatant weird screaming and trippy time signatures. Atreyu opened for Iron Maiden, so I accidentally saw Atreyu, which was kind of neat. They also had some songs in like EA Sports games years ago. If you like indie rock, you'll love Block Party. I do. That's a good find. I haven't seen them live, but I know for like some monster truck video I did years ago, I used their stuff. They have a lot of good stuff. The Prayer is really good. Helicopter was in a bunch of video games. There's a second one that's gonna bother me. They're in Codemasters games too. They're just everywhere for a bit. I really like them. Mr. Music Guy, yeah, King Casmo, yep. I'm gonna get made fun of for this. I am the biggest Kiss nerd. This is something my dad passed down to me, so it's not my fault. A lot of boomers have unknowingly downloaded Kiss bootlegs from me. So when they started releasing their DVD set of concerts, I think it was called the Kissology series, I was actually the guy to rip all the audio off the DVDs and upload them as audiobooks, or not audiobooks, audio bootlegs on Guitars 101. So, like, I'm the source of a lot of, like, weird, obscure, and, like, kind of rare Kiss bootlegs. And, like, I would, like, trade with, like, other boomers, for, like, rare shows that were, like, not publicly circulated. And then, because I was, like, in high school at the time, I learned how to use a DVD audio extractor and ripped the audio so it could be an audio bootleg, too. I've only seen Kiss once, but like my dad was a huge fan dating back to the 70s, and I could talk for hours about them. Do not get me started on Kiss. Van Halen I have a similar amount of bootlegs for, but they didn't really tour enough, so like once you collect all the major soundboards, it's over. So I have like a pretty big Van Halen folder too. Metallica, I collected a lot of soundboard bootlegs, but then it got kind of boring because they just release all their own shit through Nugs. So like every show they've ever played since '03, you can listen to straight from the soundboard. So there's not like there's not a collecting aspect to it because they collect it themselves more or less and just upload it. Kiss is not for me, not gonna lie. I can listen to it on the radio, but not when I'm jamming on Spotify. Kiss is chaotic, which is why I love them. Every album is Paul Stanley feeling insecure and trying to just copy what other bands are doing. So they've released like 20 or 27 albums, something ridiculous, and every album is a different genre of Paul trying to play catch up with what was happening in rock or metal at the time. So it's like, oh, they have an album that sounds like Soundgarden from the 90s. They have like an album where they try and be Metallica with like really heavy shit. They have like an 80s glam rock album. They have like an album full of synths. They have an album full of really shitty, underproduced demos. They have a pop album. It's chaos, and it's really retarded because neither of them are good songwriters. Paul and Gene are idiots, and cannot write music. So you get lovely lyrics such as "I want to put my log in your fireplace," and that sold 500,000 copies. Excellent. It's just bizarre. Unlike Metallica, which just kind of has a really basic chronology, like, oh, our bassist died. We hired this guy, we hazed him, then he quit, and then we hired this other guy from Ozzy's band, and that's kind of the entire band's history. Kiss is just like, oh god, what's happening here? You're inventing new characters, and then this guy is suing, and then this guy's not really in the band, but he is in the band, and then this guy played on these tracks because Ace was drunk, so it's not really Ace on this album. And it just continues into chaotic territory for 40 or 50 years. It's so funny. Didn't Kiss release a disco album at one point? Yeah, Dynasty. And a little bit of Unmasked too, but even that is a false lead. Like, I Was Made for Loving You is really the only disco song on that album. There's other good songs like Hard Times and 2000 Man that are just solid rock songs. It's just really funny. And of course, then there are like the really weird, like avant-garde, like side projects. Like, oh, Gene has a reality TV show, and Paul is like painting art that is just terrible, and he's painting circles and he's selling them. And the guy they got to replace Ace Frehley over the last 20 years, like originally started off as like a tour manager, that would like clean Gene Simmons' gutters when he asked, and now he's the guitarist in Kiss. It's just fucking retarded. What happened to the AI announcer project you were working on? Watched one video from it and never seen it again. Oh, we're still working on it. We'll show you when it's ready. It'll be fun. Also, GOAT move to get Enrique Alves on board. Yeah, of course. Like, that to me was a no-brainer. There's a couple of guys we hired from the community that we still have yet to introduce yet for Straight 4. That people are going to see and be like, oh, Jesus. Like, it's to me, it's actually been quite funny how the talk through most of this year has been like, ooh, like, this Ren Sport game looks really interesting. And it's like, guys, you should see who's on our staff. You should go on LinkedIn and just look at some of the names we got. That's probably the bigger story. But yeah, Henrique's a good guy. We had a really good work meeting last week where I'm just like, I'm so glad we hired you. It was like the best 90-minute Zoom call of my life. I was just so happy we got him. Got to go. Bye, Mr. Canadian. See you, dude. I'm surprised we still got like 40 people hanging out and watching AI race replays. It is what it is. I've always been impressed on how relevant Kiss has been. Haven't been much of a fan, to be honest. Their best songs are really good. Detroit Rock City, Lick It Up, Creatures of the Night, War Machine. There's a lot of really crazy stuff they've written. I've Had Enough Into the Fire is a good one. But they wrote so many goddamn albums because they toured and wrote albums relentlessly. It was literally like, it was the Activision Call of Duty thing, except in the music industry, where like without fail they put out a new album every year. That eventually they wrote a lot of garbage, and it's really funny. But because it's an Ian Bell project, most people just write off the G3 Revival game. Thank you, Mr. Ian, right? I mean, it is what it is, right? Like, the game, I think, is just going to stand on its own, you know? Like I opened this broadcast with saying, hey, I know it's iRacing, but I'm excited for the NASCAR iRacing partnership and what comes with that in console game format. Like, that's how I'm going to approach that. And I think a lot of people are going to see what we've got on the drawing board as we reveal stuff over the coming months and be like, oh, this is sick, you know? You're selling me on Kiss. Again, just be warned, because there's a lot of shit. Like, do not listen to Let's Put the X in Sex. Just don't. Like, it's just terrible. What was the other one off that album? You Make Me Rock Hard? Don't listen to that. Creatures of the Night's pretty good. Alive 3 is, in my opinion, the best collection of songs. Because the issue with Kiss that they had, this is turning into a Kiss stream for random sim racers, I am sorry. They wrote a lot of, like, early metal. But the problem is they did it in the early 70s when amp technology was just not there. So all of their songs that like could be classified as like heavy metal or just metal in general do not sound like they're designed to sound. You know, it sounds like an Aerosmith song, but when you play it through a modern amp and you play the riff a bit faster than intended, you're like, holy shit, these dudes were onto something. Kiss Alive 3 kind of shows that. They played a lot of their early stuff from the early 70s through modern amps that existed in the early 90s. They played stuff faster. They only had 2 of the original members, so they ended up sounding more like a proper metal band. And the songs sounded how they existed in the minds of Simmons and Paul Stanley, as opposed to this weird, like, early 70s, like, I don't know how you'd describe it. Like blues rock, kind of like Aerosmith. Crash Course and Bra Surgery, these album titles are ass. Oh, 100%. Again, the band is just chaotic. Straight Force driving consultant is the fucking Stig. Oh yeah, he's been involved with that core group for a while. That's really not new, honestly. A lot of songs from before the 80s just sound puny. Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying. Bands that existed in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s, the amp technology just wasn't there for the songs to be as powerful as they are now. I'm playing Thunder 03's career mode while listening to you talk. That's the correct way to go. 100% races? Oh, you're crazy. That's going to exhaust you. So talking about um, the race that's on the screen right now, I think this is 105% AI. It's a 21-minute race because I'm weird like that. And this was my first attempt at a race on Salzburgring, which is a pretty obscure Austrian track, I think. And it really wasn't long to memorize at all, because it's essentially Monza, but in Austria. So there's like one chicane. The track is basically a giant Martinsville where there's just two hairpin corners at either end. Here's one of the hairpin corners connected by these like two really long straights. So like the entire track has 3 turns. And as I'm driving it, I'm like, is that really the entire lap? Is like a chicane here, and a Scary-like section in Sector 3, and then there's the finish line. It's like, oh, yeah, I guess there is. It's weird. So this was my Friday. As much as I love RaceRoom, though, the AI definitely needs work. There's a lot of corners on some tracks where the AI struggle because the corners are too tight, and then to compensate to hit the benchmark lap time at other corners on the track, the AI will get super grip. So that fast-flowing right-hander or corner exit here, especially, the AI just become magic school bus to your opponents and just race right up to you. But then they can't execute turn 1 properly. Because it's just this weird tight chicane, so you just pull away from them. And this is kind of what sours me on sim racing and what's made me struggle with finding time to play it over the summer. Because like anytime I'd sit down to do an AI race, I'd just be like, oh, they have that one corner syndrome, and you just pull away from them and win the race easily. And then you can tell like on other parts of the track they get AI grip hacks and catch right back up to you, and I'm like, this is lame. Most sim racing games need AI work. Yeah, and some of it is not even just work. In the times I've messed around with AC's AI and NASCAR 03's AI, a lot of times it's just you just need to run a different AI line. You literally just need to record yourself driving, and then use that as the AI line, which thankfully NASCAR 03 lets you. You just import the LP file from the replay. Because to me, it's almost like some of these guys that set the AI line, like the base AI path for each track, didn't actually know the correct racing line. So they're like trying to enter the corner the wrong way, or like at a really shallow angle, and you watch as the AI enters the corner at a shallow angle, experiences understeer, and then the grip hacks take over, and you're like, what the fuck is happening here? Like even in this clip right there, entering 1, you can see I'm like a whole car width wider to the edge of the track compared to the AI. That's not an AI code problem. That's whoever set the AI line could probably just run a different lap with a better AI line and make them take a wider swing at that chicane, and they pick up half a second. I noticed a lot of that when I was fucking with Assetto Corsa's AI. Where I was like, whoever set the AI line for this track like literally doesn't know how to drive. I missed your NASCAR cancel culture video. Wish I shared it before it was removed. Yeah, and like I said, there wasn't any like legal pressure or anything like that, which a lot of people seem to speculate is like a thing I encounter frequently. I just clearly could tell that I rushed it, and I'm like, no, it's not my best work, and I kind of have autism, so I just deleted it. And I was like, no, that is not reflective of my best YouTube video capabilities, so I just canned it. AI is the last priority for devs, it seems. Not entirely. A lot of it, sometimes you just need to think outside the box with it. You know, I think the R-Factor ISI motor AI is fine. I think AC's AI is actually fine. You can clean up a lot of it by just running a lap yourself and importing that as the driving line. And, like, this is ditto for mod tracks, too, right? Like, especially in the NASCAR 03 community, a lot of the guys who are still modding stuff for NASCAR 03 are, like, teenagers. So, like, they're not the best drivers, and that's okay. Like, it is what it is. Like, I don't expect an 18-year-old to be a god behind the wheel. So whenever you download a mod track, it is kind of important to be like, let's check to see if the AI is up to snuff here, because you don't know what teenager just recorded a line just to say screw it and get it over with. When in reality, you could probably extract like a whole second or two out of making them run the proper line at a road course properly, for example. Even like some of the ovals I found too in modding 03, there's just stuff we understand about how to run certain tracks that are just different now, because they just kept running races there. Like, for example, at Fontana, or Auto Club Raceway, or whatever you call it, in NASCAR 03, the default fast line for the AI is like along the bottom, right? But of course, as time has gone on and the track has developed this really abrasive and like slick surface, the metal line for California is actually right on the wall. So of course, what you do as a modder is you turn around and be like, okay, I'm going to set the fast line to be right up on the wall like guys are actually doing in real life, and suddenly you've gained 3/10 a lap. It's little stuff like that just happens, right? Jago 107. The NASCAR cancel culture video, was that the one that showed how team owners were giving rides to female drivers in exchange for certain favors? No, that one got taken down because I really wanted to use Pantera for it. And I got, not a strike against the channel, but it disabled monetization because I used, what was it, Mouth for War? And I'm like, oh, that sucks. I run unmodded AC as Stefano intended. Do you intend to ever release the AI racing lines you made for AC? Well, no, not really. I don't need to, because like I said, like, when you enable the dev apps, you can just do that, like, yourself. You can just go out and run a hot lap in your car class of choice that you want to race, import that as the AI line, and typically have a much better line than whatever the stock one was. It just sucks because, like, not everyone has the time to do that, right? I do, though, because it bothers me. It also makes live service games like RaceRoom a bit harder of a sell on me, because, like, when I play NRL3 or even AC offline, I can just, you know, if I don't like how the AI runs somewhere, it's like, well, I'll take an extra 5 minutes to just go fix it. Here you obviously can't, right? So you end up running this race at a track where look how far I am compared to the SL or the AMG GT3 behind me. I'm like 20 car lengths ahead, and he'll just catch right up here. You know, like he's within 5 car lengths now. I don't like that. Funny thing is, I'm actually medically diagnosed autistic, but I don't care if anyone uses the R word. It's not an issue for me. Yeah. People need to prioritize bigger issues. Okay, that race is over. That was a fun little offline race. What else do we got here? Practice, practice, practice. Wow, I can sort by game mode. That's cool. Praga R1. Apparently I won this race. 6:23. This was for sure an online race. Oh, this race is hilarious. I am pretty sure. So I was definitely warming up here. I was warming up on RaceRoom before I went out to the racetrack, I think. 6:23, we definitely raced that day. That was, I think, the last race before our, like, month-long summer holiday. That sounds right. Dunking on kids and then driving out to the track. That's fun. People seem to care more about words and actions nowadays. Well, yeah, and that's what I was saying earlier about the American education system, and to some extent the Canadian education system too, is that a lot of teachers nowadays are very politically charged, unfortunately, and tell kids that that matters. So apparently, this is my car. I'm P1. I don't know how to turn labels on. Maybe it's tab. It's not tab. L? N? Okay, neither. This was a ranked online race, I guess. I remember distinctly, though, this being completely fucking chaos. and like people being mad at the end of it. Oh, let's pick me. So this is the Praga R1 ranked stuff. This is for sure online because already someone's dead. 2 people are dead. Especially so at the college level. Yeah, politically charged teachers tell kids to hyperfixate on mean words. And those kids honestly just don't know any better. Like, it's not really their fault. So they turn 17, 18, 19, 20, and their priorities are just completely out of whack. I'll give you a good example. How do I put this? People were upset that, like, I shared, like, something insensitive on Twitter, and were, like, trying to cancel me over it, which was, like, a pretty regular occurrence. And I was sitting around digging into motorsport games. Right? Like, you guys would have caught motorsport games earlier if you diverted the resources you did to digging through my Twitter history towards this company who was making sketchy, very bad NASCAR games. You know, like, the amount of effort these guys are putting into is pretty commendable, but it's like it's being directed at entirely the wrong things. Like who cares if I said something moderately offensive on Twitter in 2016? You should chase up the guys who are making this really shoddy NASCAR shovelware product. That's how I feel about that. It's the right amount of effort being directed at entirely the wrong thing. I think this is the race where we catch up to lap traffic and it just becomes a total shit show. They legitimately believe saying mean words is worse than running a fraud scheme. Well, that's what I mean, right? Like, an entire generation of politically charged teachers have convinced kids that, like, that's more important. So it's kind of scary when you think about it. And it also doesn't help that, like, a lot of moderators and, like, community enforcement or community standards teams at these various tech companies are kids like that. Because, like, think of all the stuff that happened with, like, Twitter being infested with, like, pedophiles. But then, like, they would ban people for sharing, like, ludicrous lyrics. Like I did. It's like, hey, you have a problem with, like, sketchy people on your platform. I said I have hoes in different area codes and that destroyed my account. So I'm just not on Twitter. Like, okay. North America has a bit of a problem right now. These guys are starting to reel me in. I remember this race being a lot closer than it was. There is a race where we are just in this insane, chaotic battle going through lap traffic. And it's really funny. We live in an age where the truth actually offends people. Yeah, it's very strange. You know, you guys can probably figure out my opinions on Trump based on where I live, but, like, it's been very strange to see people react to him the way they do. I'm waiting for either World War III or the Second American Civil War. Sorry, but a lot of that's already happening right now. Like, what do you think COVID was? COVID was a war that most people don't realize was a thing. We slipped from accepting people for who they are to not being allowed to criticize people if they have certain personal characteristics. Yeah, I've talked to my mom about this a lot, because she's a librarian at my old high school, and, like, even she kind of sees it now. It really started with bullying in the mid-2000s. Like, bullying for minor trivial differences between people is really stupid. Like, oh, you wear glasses, so I'm gonna pick on you. That was stupid. But like, kids who came dressed to school as furries and like intentionally weirded people out kind of deserve to get picked on, and it's not because we thought they were weird. It was just like, bro, like, it was a way of like socially moderating people to be like grow up, you know. I'm probably not explaining this correctly, so I apologize, but like, there are actually two forms of bullying. There's like traditional bullying, which is like it's wrong and like come on now. But then there's social moderation, where it's like, dude, stop being weird at school. Like, stop being weird at work. We now made social moderation like illegal. Have you kept up with the Ren Sport drama? I have. Pretty closely. A lot of people don't realize this, but I'm pretty sure you can see this on LinkedIn, is that Tim Wheatley, the guy who kind of broke the story on RaceRoom Central, he actually works for us. And he mentioned, how do I say this? He mentioned that he had sat on the story, but was like waiting months to verify, and was like, I think he said in the article he reached out to, maybe it was Stephen Hood, about the unlicensed code or whatever. I knew about this basically before anyone. You know, basically the first day their beta came out, I think it might have been Tim went through the code and he's like, this looks like ISI stuff. But of course we couldn't say anything, right? But yeah, we were sitting on that for a while. I'm still waiting to see how it pans out, because, like, there's a lot of moving parts to it that people don't realize yet. It'll for sure end up in a courtroom, though. That's my opinion. It's weird enough and wild enough that this is probably going to court at some point. Red Bull Sauber Patronus, and now people see that they can get power over others by buying into this stuff and using it to beat people over the head with. Yeah, that's an issue. I basically don't want to go any further into this topic, but I live in Alberta and I went to a school whose mascot was named the Crusaders, so you can kind of figure out where I stand on certain social topics. There's definitely, how do I put this? There are definitely narcissists who are using social causes as a weapon now. And that's not good. Every game will be ISI forever. That's not a bad thing. It's really what you do with the game. If you just release another smorgasbord sim with cars and tracks and hope people make their own fun, it's going to get boring. We're now at the point where we should start really having, like, vehicle ownership, financial metagames, XP systems, stuff like that, to kind of flesh out the experience, because, like, you can only do so much with car on track. I'm basically afraid to live life in fear that one minuscule miscue basically ends everything socially and opportunity-wise before I even have a chance to establish myself in this world. You're not wrong, and I've heard people say that before. Especially when it comes to women. I mean, I'm just going to assume everyone here is a guy. Talking to girls is kind of terrifying because of that, because you just know, like, one wrong move and your DMs are sent to the group chat, you know? And then you're humiliated on Facebook or whatever. Beyond that, too, as we talked about earlier with, like, schizos you meet from sim racing, you never know if, like, something you post on, like, Twitter, some guy who crashed into you in a race or think a wreck is your fault in your race is gonna, like, hunt you down and find out your employer, you know? Like, it's not good. I'd honestly be fine just going back and someone making a sim focused on one series, cars or specific ERC GPL. The problem is you can't do that, right? A lot of these, like, really important games throughout sim racing were financial disasters that people just learned to love over the years, right? Like, GPL didn't do well because it was hard. Richard Burns' rally sank the company. SRX, which is a great game, despite some of its arcade undertones, I don't exactly think it sold well. Like, who watches SRX really, right? Even NASCAR stuff, like, you know, NASCAR's TV ratings are not what they used to be. So, like, who bought NASCAR Heat 5? Who bought NASCAR 21? Who, for example, how many people bought Leadfoot? Do you remember that game by Ratbag? You know, Ratbag did a bunch of dirt track racing games, but then they released, like an unlicensed stadium super truck game. It's called Leadfoot. Look it up, it's really cool. How many copies do you think that sold? So now we're sitting on all this data being like, do not release single series games, it doesn't work. So we're just in this really weird spot where every game kind of needs to be like a smorgasbord. And have like a decent amount of variety. Basically, the one compromise is to focus on a discipline. Like with GT Revival, obviously we've leaked screenshots of like different eras of sports car racing, but it's all still sports car racing. That's probably the way to go in the future. Instead of everything under the sun from open wheel cars to rallycross in the same game, it's like pick a discipline and stick with it. That's probably going to be the compromise. A lot of sim racing games would benefit from some form of progression, whether it be offline or online play. That's part of the reason iRacing is so popular. Yep. 100%. You know, even though I don't like iRacing's physics, the fact that, like, you boot the game up and you have something to do, and you can set goals for yourself based on their ecosystem, being like, I want to hit this level of I rating. I want to hit this level of safety rating. It's like something to do. Whereas you boot up Assetto Corsa and it's just like, I don't have anything to do. Like, I can do the career mode, I don't unlock anything. I get a Steam achievement that no one cares about. You know, that's it. Which is why so many online servers now have, like, RPG plugins for them. Like, oh, you level up and you earn cash for clean laps and stuff like that. Because it's just like, I need something, bro. Still playing Forza? No, I dropped it. Hello, Jonesy. You missed an hour and a half. Like I said earlier, Forza right now has pretty significant FPS and other graphical issues, and I just can't. I can't play a racing game where the FPS is going from 27 to 60 and back again, like, multiple times. And half of the geometry is just not present in the game world. It's weird. If it was fixed, I would be on it every day. Like, the potential there is so great, but, like, this might be months until it's playable, which just really sucks. Exactly why I have no interest in romance or dating. Too risky, especially when involving people around my age. Yeah, like, it's tough. One wrong move and something you sent is all over Facebook. It's not fun. And that's before you start factoring in, like, the weird stuff that comes with dating, like, as a millennial or, I guess, a Gen Z person now. Have you gotten into RC cars? No, I have not. I play with real cars. EA Sports NASCAR games in the early 2000s gave NASCAR the popularity and helped significantly on the marketing aspect. Yeah, absolutely. Not only did they have insane TV ratings, but, like, the game was amazing. You know, when you look at, like, the reviews for, like, NASCAR Thunder on IGN or GameSpot, they basically gave it 9s and said, like, this is incredible. So even if you weren't big into NASCAR, or you had, like, a casual interest in it, you played it and you're like, this is fucking awesome. Like, why is this game so detailed and so good? You know, like, R&D stuff and grudges and alliances and, like, all kinds of, like, crazy unlockable shit. And, like, oh, you don't like NASCAR on ovals, like, here's a bunch of fantasy tracks you can unlock and, like, you can race in the city streets and stuff like that. It was just cool. Then on the other hand, the new Forza has progression in quotations, but the progression is shit. Yeah, because it is a fine balance, right? And a lot of these guys for the big budget studios that make racing games, like the AAA stuff, like the Crew Motorfest, Forza, a lot of them just aren't racers, or really, like, in tune with what racers want, or, like, how racing works as a sport. So, like, I'll give you a key example of this. Sorry, let me get a drink here, because I'm talking a lot and it's just destroying my throat. So the problem with the new Forza's progression is that it's good for people who are new to the game, but like eventually you're going to learn all the tracks and be pretty good. So like when I play Forza, when did that come out? Thursday? I'm turning laps at Spa, and just every corner it's like 10.0, 10.0, 10.0, nice corner. And you could tell they just didn't account for someone like me who got good at the game. And like I'm not the only one who's good at the game. There's going to be like thousands of people playing this. And you've built this whole progression mechanic purely for people who are bad at the game, not taking into account the fact that it's 2023. Most people picking up Forza have played like 5 or 6 racing games before, and they're actually kind of good at them. They don't actually need this. So who is this for? You know? So I think, race is over. Sorry, I thought that would be more entertaining than it actually was. There's a couple crazy races I ran, in that car. What else is here? Brands Hatch, Brands Hatch, Brands Hatch. Tattoos F4. This is the race. This race is chaos. I think. So it's cool Forza put it in a progression system, but like they didn't really take into account how a racer is going to progress through the game world. It's basically a system designed purely for inexperienced people, because if you're good at the game, it just keeps reading 10, 10, 10, 10. Congratulations, a good corner. And then it's weird too, right? Because they lock car upgrades behind your car level. So it's like, oh, to buy a rear wing for your car, you have to be car level 12. Imagine I went into like Part Source and was like, hey, can I get a fuel pressure regulator for my Cavalier? And they look at me and they're like, you haven't driven enough kilometers in your car. Fuck you. I would be mad. They would get a brick through the window. Like, what do you mean I can't buy a fuel pressure regulator? You know? Like, what do you mean I have to put 50k or 100k on my car? Like, what are you talking about? I would be mad. You know, like, why can't I just go to Part Source and buy a wing for my car? Or buy a ECU for my car? Like, that's how it works. Right? So I don't know why Forza went in that direction, because to me it's like, do you not understand how cars work? Like, I can go to Advanced Auto Parts and buy shit for them. That's a weird-ass progression system. Yeah, I agree. But, again, that's how you can tell games like that aren't really meant by car people. But what really ended up happening, at least the way I interpret it, is that, you know, someone looked at how World of Warcraft works and was like, we should do that, but with cars. Right? And we all told them that in the pre-release meetings, but Chris, the lead dev, apparently came up with the upgrade car leveling system, and he doesn't want to let it go. From Magnus. That's what I mean, right? Like, some of these guys are not racers. So they don't even have the little voice in their head being like, that's not how racing works. They can't just instinctively pull from, you know, memory or their knowledge of the sport being like, no, that would be dumb. They just look at what happens in World of Warcraft and they just get a one-track mind and are like, WoW does this and they're successful. We should do this. It's very strange. So this is another ranked online race I apparently did. Whoa, it's Ted Howe. Hello, Mr. Ted. Random online race I did in the F4. I'm in the blue X-Side car, and this I believe gets really dumb, which is why we're watching it. So if I were to do an XP system, what I would probably do, basically when you race, you never actually have like positions that you have in mind that you want to finish, because like racing is so random, as I discussed earlier, that like you can never go to the track and be like, I have to finish third today because that means I improved as a driver. I have to finish first today because that means I improved. That's not how racing works, because racing's really random. Like, your car could fail, or like the other guys you're racing against are just on it that day and just really, really good and get the setup right. Um, it's not a guarantee where you're going to finish like it is in sim racing, where it's purely determined by how good you are behind the wheel. You know, it just is what it is. Racing's very random in that regard. But what we tell young drivers and like newer and inexperienced guys who come race with us, and this goes from late models to mini stocks, basically anything I've driven, even like go-karts, you know, at the indoor karting facility, you basically look at the leader's lap time and you compare yourself to that. You're like, okay, this is good pace. How close are you to the leader's pace, right? So for a new driver, let's say in like mini stocks, it's like, okay, you got lapped your first session, like this is to be expected. Um, Slowly it turns into, okay, you hung with the pack for 2 laps. Okay, you hung with the pack for 4 laps. Oh, you're actually within a tenth of the leaders on speed hive or whatever. That's actually really good. Good for you. You're doing it. Like, that's good pace. Now you just got to be consistent. That's how racers actually talk, right? So the way I do an XP system in a game is that every track and every car class for a track would have what I'd call like a part-time. Like, just like, what is good race pace around here? And every time you either achieved or beat that part-time, you would gain XP. So, like, regardless of whether you're in testing or, like, multiplayer custom lobby, or you're running offline or you're running online, doesn't matter where you finish, doesn't matter what difficulty you're on, it's just like, here is what's considered a good time around this place. Did you beat the part-time that lap? Oh, you did? Cool, here's a reward. Here's some XP. Because that kind of trains you to be like, you know, it doesn't really matter where you finish. Like, crazy shit can happen with pit strategies. Did you put yourself in position to win? Disregarding the randomness that sometimes happens with racing. And if you beat the part-time, the answer is probably yes. So you should get rewarded for that. That is a system that comes from someone who actually races. None of this, I was high after work and I played World of Warcraft, and World of Warcraft sold a bajillion copies, so we should do that for our game, you know? This race is chaotic right now. So I think the yellow car or the orange car is a lap down. But he's running like super pacey right now. Yep, he let us by. I know the back half of this race gets super stupid. What are your thoughts on the Beam NG Drive Monster Truck community? I haven't been invested in that for like several years. I never really got into Beam NG. I was one of the OG guys who raced when Rigs of Rods was first discovered. So like someone made, I think it was Box 5 Arena, and like the Gravedigger with the breakable parts on it and stuff like that. Maybe not even breakable parts, just the crushable cars. That very first arena that Box 5 put out, both the outdoor one as well as the indoor one, with kind of the J-hook style track, I was there for that. I was a teenager when that was put out. And I was part of the first initial group that began racing that in leagues online. So, like, there were so few people who found Rigs of Rods, and were like, hey, you can race monster trucks on this competitively, and set up, like, an online league through, like, AOL Instant Messenger. I was part of that group. So I ran that probably in 2010. I had, like, just graduated high school, and, like, pretty much everyone else in the league was that age, too. So we used AIM to, like, run the races. It was called Rigs of Rods Monster Jam. And I think the old YouTube channel is still up. All the videos open with Iron Maiden's Can I Play With Madness? I'm in that. I drove, I think, Michigan Ice Monster in a lot of the leagues, and then for Season 2, they migrated, they started a whole new site, and started ripping the truck bodies from Monster Jam Urban Assault. and they renamed it to Sim Monsters, which is still active today. I was like one of the first people on that site. I remember watching Sim Monsters TV when I was like 11. Yep, I was in that. I don't know if they used my name. They might. Actually, they might for Season 2. I won the Minneapolis racing. The Minneapolis event from like 2011 with Sudden Impact and Jurassic Attack in the final. I'm actually in that against Al Harlow's kid, Steve. So there's a couple guys that I met in that I'm still friends with today. Yeah, that was a pretty cool trip too. Is you're racing against this guy, and he's like, "Oh, my dad's a rock star," and we're like, "What? You know, who says that? Like, come on, like, stop bullshitting us." So we Google the guy's name, and they're like, "Oh, your dad's the bassist for like this beloved '70s rock band that my mom knows all the words to." It was a peak my dad works at Nintendo moment. It's really funny. So yeah, Al Harlow's kid, the bassist for a band called Prism, we raced monster trucks with online. He was really good. Oh my god, what's happening here? That's why I remember this race. Holy shit. We have to watch this. Onboard Hood, maybe? No, Chase. This is why this replay is important to me. When did you see the band Airborne live, and how was that show? That would have been October 1st, 2022. They played at a club called Midway here. Their same set that they've run for years now. They opened with... what the fuck did they open with? Ready to Rock, that's what it was. They've run the same set list for like 10 years. What is the action camera? They opened with Ready to Rock. Most of the stuff they play is from their first like 2 or 3 albums. They closed with Stand Up for Rock and Roll and Runnin' Wild. It was loud, man. It's really loud. If that happened in iRacing, there would be a witch hunt for that guy. Yeah. Well, the thing is with RaceRoom is it's technically free to play. And I think this car, or something close to it, is part of the free content. So, like, you get a lot of, like, genuinely dumb people in these races. Which is why iRacing is cultist. Yeah, it's... Again, we talked about this earlier, Jonesy, when you weren't here, but a lot of terminally online kids have... Oh my god. Apparently I won this race. Okay, so I was the beneficiary of a lapped car causing chaos, and now I have paid my penance. You're an asshole. How do I win this? Apparently I won this race, so now I'm back in 3rd. I saw Airborne in Toronto last year in September. It was very loud indeed. All merch sold out at the end of the show. Yeah, so I saw that tour too. They started east, and they had that band that does a cover of Harvester of Sorrow mixed with some like bluegrass song. And their drummer, I think, couldn't get across the border. So they played like an all-acoustic set. Yeah, that tour was crazy. I'm an asshole. I'm mean. Don't play racing games with me. This was dirty. So I guess this is 2nd place. And I get to run off the corner, and I just throw it up the inside and be like, yeah, you can hit me. That's like, see, in European road racing, that's like, oh, you gotta report to the stewards after that. You did a no-no, that's a penalty. Native Howl. That's who they were. Yeah, they did a weird... It's like a hybrid song of Harvester of Sorrow and Man of Constant Sorrow. And, like, during the song, they flip back and forth between one and the other. And it's so bizarre. So I'm like headbanging in the front row. I'm like, I know half the words to the song. What is happening here? I think the white car is leading. That sounds right. The back marker is trying to wreck me. I can see it now. Everyone's gonna find all his lap guys' Facebooks and report all their posts as porn as revenge. It's surprising how frequently I've heard stories of like that happening to people in iRacing. There's a dude we used to race with back in the 4chan GT3 league I was part of. That happened to after like Spec Me Auto Race. He like got in some argument with a guy that was just clearly like drunk or whatever. And like 72 hours later he goes onto Facebook and he's like, someone reported all my posts for porn. Beam NG monster truck stuff has come a long way. Yeah, I know it has. Sometimes I'll watch like the videos out of curiosity, but the problem is monster truck racing is a bit hard because the races are so short that you can't really play it offline. You have to get into a community that runs events online, whether it be fun runs or like a point series. And then like freestyle, like it's 2 minutes. Like it's such a short burst of racing that for me it's just hard to get into, you know? And you gotta think, like, when I was a teenager, I played the shit out of rigs or rods and, like, you know, just sat there for hours just freestyling different trucks on different tracks. So, like, I've done enough monster trucking for a lifetime. This race is chaotic, man. There are so many idiot lap cars. Especially that one who just drove off the track. So, what really entertains me when I play, like, racing sims online like this is watching some of the back markers and, like, what happens. Because, like, to download RaceRoom, like, this is a game that, like, not a lot of people know about, like, in the grand scheme of things. Like, it's not Project Cars with, like, a TV ad campaign, right? It's not Assetto Corsa. It's not... You know what I mean? Like, it's not a mass market release. Like, it's kind of a niche game. So, like, to get into something like this, like, you kind of have to be pretty well-versed in racing sims. And, like, if you're well-versed in racing sims, you're probably a half-decent driver, or, like, are at the point where all your shit is configured properly. Like, is that not a fair assessment to make? So, like, you know, everyone's pace is going to vary, you know, in these races, but, like, to see people, like, driving straight off the track and, like, making, like, really boneheaded amateur decisions... It's like, do you have a brain? What was your favorite Monster Jam World Finals? One or two? One was crazy. Because, like, I grew up as a kid watching monster trucks in that era, and just that whole 2000 season of the tracks progressively getting bigger was, like, mind-blowing, and then seeing, like, giant trailers and stuff at the World Finals was nuts. Two was more memorable, though. Canuso almost winning freestyle and then, like, breaking her back. The various encores they had. Just the size of the obstacles. In terms of favorite layouts, though, it's probably 3 and 4 are tied for my favorite. Maybe 9? Whatever one that we ran at Sim Monsters for the first World Finals. The one with the happy face on the tanker truck. So 3, 4, and 9 are probably my favorite layouts. Did you see any live music shows this year? Yeah, Lady Friend and I went to Blink-182. Had front row for that. I talked about this earlier. I saw Megadeth and Bolt for my Valentine earlier. That would have been in May, I think. Okay, so race is over here because my AI is controlling the car. Who else did I see? I think that might have been it. Oh yeah, and Iron Maiden like a week ago. 2 weeks ago. If I was to ever drive a Beam NG Monster Truck series, it would have to be based on the Gen 1 to 1.5 era of trucks. People made a lot of those for rigs of rods, didn't they? Where else did I embarrass myself in this game? Porsche Carrera Cup, that was an AI race I ran. Group C race. How long is this race? That might be an hour long. Or is it? Duration, 1 hour. It might be a bit long. 40-minute Carrera Cup race. Oh, I ran a lot of these. Formula RaceRoom. At Interlagos? Oh, I remember that. That was the video I used for the Terms of Service violation video. What else is here? McLaren at the Nordschleife. R9ECK. This might be fun. Goofy little front-wheel drive cars. Only 20 minutes. 9 was the Go to Monster Jam events. Nothing will beat that layout to me. Yeah. It was intense. Iron Maiden was worth it. They only played 15 songs. They didn't, as I said earlier, they didn't play a lot of their hits because that's just not the theme of the tour. But it was worth the relatively affordable price we paid for it. I was really happy with that. All right. TV. This is me shitbox racing, I guess. Thoughts on Tom Meents retiring after 2024? I'm very sad I never got to see him race in person. I've hummed and hawed about the going to see him live at the World Finals next year. Might have to do that. I don't remember this race at all, but apparently I ran it. Interesting. Basically, based on how this lawsuit shakes out, will determine what I do for fun over the next 2 years or so. I still remember when he was just a mudbogger and Shake Me. Yeah, you watched TNN before I was cognizant. And, like, self-aware, I guess. I didn't... Whenever TNN had Trucks and Tractor Power on, I didn't really care for the non-Monster Truck episodes, so I never paid attention to the Mudbog and Tractor Pull segments, same with the Tough Truck stuff. Because, like, I'm 6, so I didn't really get, like, the idea of a feeder system and, like, oh, some Mudboggers might turn into monster truck drivers. Like, I was literally too stupid to understand that, but, like, you can't really blame me. But it is cool going back and, like, watching the footage of him, because he was a good driver even back then. But he did say, like, it's his last full competitive season, so, like, I don't think he's done retiring. Like, I don't think he's going to fully retire. I think it'll be like Dale Jr., where he runs, like, 1 or 2 or 3 shows a year just because he's like, what the fuck else am I going to do with my time, right? Yeah, as a kid, I always wondered why only Meents and Anderson went all out during freestyle, because those trucks were in-house Feld trucks, right? So, like, Monster Jam, that was their ride. Those were the trucks, like, the actual promoter owned, so they had the money from fans in the stands and from merch sales to directly repair them, right? Whereas guys like Hartsock and Dan Evans needed a truck, you know? Needed the truck to survive from event to event, otherwise it didn't get paid, right? For appearance fees or whatever. He's gonna do the stunts. Yeah, he'll probably run like a stunt truck or something. They'll have something for him. Tractor pulling became so much more based as I got older. My uncle spends a lot of time in the tractor pull scene now, because I run blown alcohol Hemi engines. And, like, he spent his entire life as a drag racing crew chief. And he's like, oh, here's the same fucking engines we run. And they just work the same way. Like, you're just trying to get max power output all the time for, like, 7 to 14 seconds. So, like, I can work on those. So he started branching out and has been going to, like, a ton of tractor pull stuff. And any of the blown alcohol classes. And apparently they run really well. Tom owned his own equipment until 2009? That's crazy. He would destroy that shit, man. Like, he abused the stuff he drove. Especially in the early 2000s, like, when someone said, like, no one else was driving that hard. Like, he wrecked that truck every weekend. Just not the names he ran. Okay, so, he owned the chassis and stuff like that, and they would pay him, be like, oh, put the Goldberg shell on. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, Meents is retiring. He announced maybe 2 months ago. He was really the first one, and I said this in my Monster Jam retrospective video that Feld themselves filed a claim to take down. If Dennis Anderson was Dale Earnhardt, Tom Meents was Jeff Gordon. The idea that he was like a purpose-bred, like, hyper-competitive young guy racer in that scene to challenge the old guard. Like, he was the first one to really turn monster truck racing into like a serious like sport, because he was just that fucking competitive. Like, he was the first guy to come out and be like, I'm going to figure out how to do this better than anyone else. Oh yeah, I knew that about the original Goldberg chassis. And we have the chassis dimensions for that. With my buds working on the in-house Feld simulator, I think they have from Tom, like, the exact measurements on how to build Goldberg, like the chassis. And I think he sent it to them because they had to model the truck for the in-house Feld simulator. No, that would be Bob Chandler, Austin, or in regarding to meta-ing monster trucks. Well, yeah, so you're both right, and you're not particularly right, because at the time, like, Chandler was like the original monster truck autist who was like, how do I take Grand Prix and NASCAR levels of NASA tier engineering into monster trucks? Bob was that guy, but the problem was a lot of monster truck racing back in the day consisted of straight line drag racing. So they built these super trucks for little 300-foot sprints, right? Tom was the guy that came around at a time when they started adding turns to the courses, and was just like, how do I get good at this? Tom used Max D to demolish his old house. Yeah. I've seen that clip. Yeah, Tom took the racing and freestyle portion to the next level. Like, when you watch clips from 99 to 2000, a lot of guys just kind of putt around the arena. Um, Tom is, like, approaching it as, like, a proper race car driver. Like, he is flying around the arena. The only guy that came close really during that initial TNN era in terms of, like, raw driving ability was Scott Hartsock in Gunslinger. Because a lot of people forget Dennis Anderson sucked during that period of time. He tried to build Gravedigger 7 in 2000, and the truck just had a ton of gremlins, and it handled like ass and was, like, super unstable. So the battle during that initial run on TNN was usually Meents and Hartsock, and then they built the second truck for Neil Elliott, which was sometimes Bulldozer, sometimes NWO, and then sometimes High Roller for the... Oh no. Sometimes High Roller. I remember seeing this in the mirror. Boys. Just saying. Physics. I Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Took Dennis until 2002 to get a decent freestyle truck. The only thing I dislike about 00 to 01 is the judges would give 30s for one big crash at the very start for some runs. It went the other direction too. The Pontiac show from the 2000 season, the judges were like complete retards, and scored everyone like a 4 or a 5, and some rando ended up winning. But at least you know it wasn't rigged. Like, it really was fan judging. Dennis was a great driver, but 7 was a bad truck. 7 is only low for the power wheelies. Holy crap, we got like a ton of monster truck autists in here. That's awesome. But if you clap that curb hard enough, it might flip a car IRL, I won't lie. Yeah, maybe. Or it would have just destroyed the right front, you know? Farrell, Kohler, and Cretan were all pretty damn good. Medusa as well. No, Medusa struggled. Medusa was pretty much Monster Trucks Danica. Jill Canuso and Wrenchhead, which is now just a subsidiary of Napa, I think. Canuso was awesome and was probably poised to be one of the best drivers in the series. Then she got hurt in World Finals too and had back problems, so she switched to drag racing. And I think she still runs. She drove like the Queen of Diamonds jet car for like ever. Yeah, the long Gravedigger 12 was sweet. That truck was cool. So this is kind of what ranked racing looks like in RaceRoom. On non-peak hours, you really just have 7 cars in the field, and everyone's running in their own zip code, which is like, I like RaceRoom, I think it drives great, but this is something you just can't avoid in these games. The Dinger finally got one. No, that's like his 3rd Cup Series win, bud. He won at Indy on the road course, he won at Watkins Glen, and he's now won at the Roval in the Cup Series. I haven't watched World Finals 4 in a long time, but the fan judging for me was always just weird. I'm a purist, so I actually don't like freestyle at all. I used to hate freestyle when we had to do it for a Rigs or Rods online league. I just don't like it. I don't have the brain to be creative like that. Medusa retired around 2006 and then came back and really struggled after that. Didn't she get hurt? Like, something happened with an injury with her. I have to ask Ethan for clarification on that. Or maybe it's on Monster Truck Wiki. Speaking of other things on Monster Truck Wiki, the Amy Hood story. That was a fun video to research. I've seen the current judging system work. They don't make the scores up, but Little Timmy judging isn't the greatest. A really funny thing that my friends found is that if you watch like Monster Jam events on Facebook Live, you can actually open like the web page for scoring and type in the city code and just like spam a bunch of fake votes. I really don't know how the scoring is calculated because like they only give you like a small 90-second window to vote, and like there's no way they receive that amount of data that quickly and can get a final score from it. But you theoretically could troll it in quite funny ways and give every run like a score of 0. So whoever wins freestyle gets a score of 0.11 or something. Some guy here loves Amy Hood. That dude was crazy. There was a dude, so I did a video on former Monster Jam driver Amy Hood, and the gist of the video is that there's an entry about her on Monster Truck Wiki, which a lot of people within the industry submit to, as well as like super fans and like photographers and stuff like that. And apparently she got busted for cocaine possession like mid-event, and was quickly scrubbed off the Monster Jam site. And then if you actually started Googling her, because she's got such a unique name, she was actually showing up on the Dirty under the Winnipeg tag, like where she was actually grew up and like raised and whatever, and was basically just outed by like people who knew her as like kind of a party animal, but like the bad kind of party animal, like like drinking cocaine, that sort of thing like that. So anyways, I basically did a video being like, I don't understand how this person made it through the Monster Jam auditioning process, because like if I applied for a job at McDonald's and I had that kind of stuff written about me online that frequently, they would probably turn down my application. So I didn't really understand like how this woman progressed through the system, and became essentially a professional athlete with so much murkiness surrounding her character. And eventually, of course, it came out that there is some pretty serious murkiness she's dealing with, and that's why she doesn't race in Monster Jam anymore. So basically, after that video went live, everyone's like, holy shit, that's crazy, you know? There was some, like, very overweight dude who, like, for the next 6 months in my YouTube comments was, like, obsessed with defending her and saying how she's a princess and, just the weird, like, kind of simp shit that, like, guys like that say. It was very strange. And, like, he would comment on, like, random videos that didn't have anything to do with, like, anything. Like, he'd comment on, like, my onboards from, like, my shitty little race car. Being like, what grudge do you have against Amy? And you click on the guy's profile, and again, he literally is, like, 350 pounds. His glasses were broken in, like, half of his videos. It was strange, bro. Yeah, I couldn't believe all that stuff. How she was a co-host with Jim Beaver is beyond me. Yeah, I don't know who that is. But yeah, that was a crazy video to research. And what's interesting is like I understand like how to avoid defamation stuff. Obviously, I got some weird lawsuit going on, but that'll probably end up in my favor anyway. But like when people make accusations against people like that on the internet, like you actually have to do some research. I was surprised how helpful the comments on the Dirty were when researching all that. Because there was a guy in the comments who basically said like, hey, her motocross career is like not as it seems, and he started naming specific races, being like, she claimed to run here, but she only did 2 or 3 laps in practice, and never attended and never ran the main. And I'm like, okay, so I started Googling the transponder timing site for like that motocross sanctioning body, and I literally found like the exact races the dude was talking about. You know, like, oh, she claimed to run this race in 2015, but she actually did just 2 practice laps and then never competed in a heat the rest of the weekend. I actually found that. And it was crazy how, like, thorough and detailed this guy's comments were, and he, like, it did my investigation for me. It was crazy. And even then, I was just, like, dumbfounded at, like, how did this pass the auditioning process, and, like, how did you become a professional athlete when, like, there was a dude in the comment section of, like, a tabloid site who, like, literally did a background check for you. And, like, proved that, like, something was deeply off about this girl who's, like, trying to apply for the job as professional racer. It was crazy. And then there was Jay Rotten. Yeah, that dude is a piece of work, too. He messaged, like, a couple people I know on Facebook, and they just told him to get lost. There was basically a dude in, like, who's, like, some Alabama Crimson Tide fan, who's, like, deeply mentally ill, and was, like, harassing people in, like, the college football fandom on Twitter. He found my videos because he doesn't know I was kind of, like, friends with Ryan Moody, who's a Madden content creator. He found me through, like, a video I had done with Ryan Moody, and then just became, like, fixated on me and, like, started writing, like, some of the racers I race with and, like, my car builder. And they all just laughed at him and said, like, dude, you are so fat. It was crazy. I've met her once or twice. She was good with the crowd, but, like, she was high-strung every time I met her. Yeah, I can't really elaborate beyond that. Um, but I will say an unnamed Monster Jam driver confirmed everything in that video, and that's why I never faced any legal repercussions for it. And said Monster Jam driver is very successful and well known. And it was basically passed along to me that he watched the video and was like, oh yeah, I was at that event that she got taken out of, and yeah, that's all true. It was crazy. So you can probably look at the truck lineup and figure out who it was, but it's pretty neat that people in the MJ scene watch that video and they're like, oh yeah, that's all real. Good find by that guy. I just don't get why people don't like you. I can never understand that because you are straightforward, honest, that is all. I get that a lot. It is what it is. I don't know. The correct way to look at it is, like, unfortunately I probably am on the autism spectrum just enough that it just makes me super blunt. And some people struggle with toxic positivity. Like my mom does. It is what it is. And those two personality styles are not meant for each other. No, it was not Adam Anderson. It's someone who's really well respected and just a good overall, all-around driver. You can probably figure it out. The thing I've learned from the sim racing era of YouTube is that mentally ill people on the internet will just go after you for zero reason. Yeah, it is kind of scary. Which, again, as I talked about earlier, it makes it mildly terrifying that, like, more and more games kind of require you to use your real name. Because, like, 90% of the people you race against are going to be fine. No one really cares. It is, like, a way to make friends and stuff like that, and it's kind of cool. But, like, there was a severe miscalculation as to how many terminally online / mentally ill people there are just, like, binging on these games. And, like, it can go badly. What truck does this mysterious driver who confirmed the story drive? I won't say. You can probably figure it out, though. I won't confirm or deny if I see the name in the chat, but again, there's a reason that I made that kind of video, and face zero legal repercussions for it. Because that was the one I expected something, you know, I expected a cease and desist letter for that. Yeah, Levi's got a good point. Look up the triple threat lineup she was on in 2019. Yep. Basically, there were 8 drivers in the arena, and one of them confirmed with us that it was real. And, like, again, I can't repeat who it was, but he confirmed it. He's like, yep, that was a thing. Oh, another short race here. Just something to end on. What the fuck else is in here? Watch the Tatus race. Watch the DTM race. Apparently I lost this one. That's not good. Let's watch me lose, to end this little chill stream. Thanks for coming to hang out. We're just shooting the shit. I might do this more often. Just with random games. I'm glad I don't use my real name on YouTube. When this guy in the NASCAR community got exposed for being a pedo, he found comments of mine talking about what is true and posted it on his Twitter or X. Yeah, like I said, you never quite know who's not mentally stable. And like I said, 95% of the time, this is not an issue. You know, I don't want to misrepresent things. 95% of the time, like, you meet someone cool on sim racing, it's like, oh, that's kind of a neat friend you have. And you just have someone to play games with, and it's awesome. You basically don't know until it's too late. Okay, so I'm apparently on pole in the not Jimmy Broadbent car. I'm in the gray car. Let's see how this race plays out. I don't win this. That's okay. On your iRacing World of Warcraft addiction video, you said you had a play-by-play planned on what went down in that Atlanta race. Still have that by any chance? I unfortunately don't. Do you use NASCAR Reddit? It's an iRacing fanboy circle jerk, among other things. I haven't had a Reddit account for years. For lack of a better word, oh god, what happened on the start? Sorry, I was reading your comments. And I missed the opening stanza of the race. Oh, I remember this race. I was not paying attention. We took the green. And I, like, missed a shift. Or, like, I started in second gear. So I just got roasted. So I'm back to fifth here. My bad. Yeah, I got very tired of using Reddit. My primary account that I used, this is going to sound, like, really invasive and shit like that. And I don't want to go, like, super personal. My account had a really weird posting history, and it was the one I posted on primarily. So, like, I would post on, like, sim racing sections and NASCAR sections and stuff like that, too. That was fine. But I also post on, like, kind of intimate personal stuff. So, like, I dealt with a girl who had a cluster B disorder. So I would post on, like, sim racing subs, but also, like, our BPD loved ones, I think. And, like, I noticed in some comments to me on, like, casual, like, fun Reddits, people would be like, oh, you posted there, you know, you're crazy. And I'm like, well, that's not what the sub is for. It's for people who have been emotionally abused by people like this. You didn't even read what the sub is about. So, like, those comments kind of got a little odd that, like, people were going through my posting history to, like, try and discredit me. And then, of course, COVID hit, and on a lot of the sports subs I followed, like the CFL subreddit or the XFL subreddit, I'd be like, hey, like, I don't need to see a press release from a backup quarterback in the XFL being like, I have the sniffles. I'm taking all necessary precautions. I like to thank all 300 of my fans and wherever I'm playing for their continued support. And I'm like, are we literally going to have a press release for every single athlete who gets a mild strain of COVID? This is ridiculous. And within seconds of posting that, I would get 100 downvotes and people saying I wanted grandma to die because people were insane like that during the days of COVID, right? And I would just be pretty firm in my stance on that. So, like, every other subreddit where something like that would happen, I'd be like, guys, this is a little bit overblown. Like, we don't, you know, random ARCA driver doesn't need to put out a press release saying he has the sniffles. This is a little kind of nuts. It would just be like insane terminally online people just piling on you, being like, you want grandma to die, you're a Trumper. Okay. It was annoying. Also be careful with that MT wiki though, Austin. Only most of that info is accurate. No, like I said, this got confirmed by one of the drivers there. He was sent that video because of my connections to the MT industry, and I use the word connections loosely. But, like, one of my best friends is on really good terms with the driver because he helped develop their simulator. And, like, showed it to him being like, hey, my friend made this cool video on Amy, and he's like, oh yeah, I was at that event. I saw everything go down because it was right before pre-race intros. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So the other thing about Reddit, like, I know you just made the comment, Iceman, that sports fans are insane in general, or was that someone else? Someone made the comment that sports fans are insane in general. Sorry, the chat's moving a bit fast right now. The other thing about Reddit is that I believe a lot of it is fueled by ChatGPT, and that the people you're arguing with are not real. And I was actually sent something by my friend Greg that confirms that, where, like, 2 different Reddit threads about wildly different political topics had the exact same comment chains and replies. Like, he posted a screenshot of them side by side with each other, and it was different usernames all saying the same thing in thread A as they did in thread B. It was nuts. And I noticed that on a lot of the high traffic and, like, subreddits were places that you would be inclined to do something like that, like R Edmonton or something like that, that you can tell that a lot of discussions are just not organic. Levi said sports fans are insane. That's what I mean. So I think there's a lot of, like, terminally online people that make discourse hard, as well as chat GPT field stuff. like I said, my biggest red flag of that was on the XFL subreddit, where like the XFL subreddit was not very active. Like it was a shitty spring football league with like 1,000 people who were interested in it. So threads did not move very fast. Threads did not have a lot of replies in them, right? But anything about COVID, suddenly the thread would spring to life with accounts that had never posted on the XFL subreddit before. And if you were any sort of anti-lockdown or anti-mandate stuff, immediately people using these really ridiculous arguments to being like, you want grandma to die? COVID is very serious. Everyone's going to die. And I'm like, something about this is not right. Like, there's 1,000 people on this board. Most people are at work right now, or, you know, not going to obsessively reply within seconds on an XFL board. You know, it's the fucking XFL. Like, I'm one of 1,000 people reading it, right? So it was just very suspicious. I think this is battle for second right now. I think YouTube has bots too, where people are degrading certain drivers, mainly in F1. Yeah, YouTube's got a lot of bots. I notice it in a lot of videos. Especially for like video game trailers, you can just tell that comments and discussions are not organic. Like a lot of people possess only surface level knowledge, or accounts possess surface level knowledge, and like when you try and challenge them or talk with them, they say things that don't make sense. There's also a lot of accounts where like, and you can see this on like my Forza Motorsport is trash video that I put out like 3 or 4 years ago. Lots of comments from channels that are just like, oh, this person hates Forza, they must be a Gran Turismo fanboy. And it's always like an account that has nothing uploaded, no likes, no playlists, no channels subscribed to. You know, it's not hard to build a narrative in your head that like, I wonder if it's like a paid bot or a paid shill to just like run interference in the comment section. Social media is really weird like that. You can see that on like the comments of WNBA posts a lot too. That itself is a whole rabbit hole, but that is pretty noticeable on like if you follow ESPN or whatever. Anytime they post like an article on the WNBA, a lot of the comments are like from AI generated accounts, and you click on their profile picture and you're like, why does your face look weird? Really interesting. What did you think about the XFL and USFL merger? Ooh, I'm excited. I love spring football. I hate the celeb worship that goes on in the NFL. So I look at spring football and the Canadian Football League as like a safe haven to just watch football. Discord I got banned from was absolutely full of anime titty and ass art. And like, does no one step forward and be like, please stop being weird, you know? Remember the comment on our very first podcast about how, why does this have a piece of shit like Ted Howe in it? And the user just had Minecraft gameplay videos on their channel? Yeah, that's absolutely what I mean. Like, there's activity from YouTube accounts in the comment sections that, like, does not match their user profile. Like, to a level that anyone under the age of 35 who's grown up on the internet would immediately flag as, like, this is a bot. The AI-generated accounts really creep me out, to be honest, like robots wearing skin. Yeah, it's pretty funny. I think it's interesting, though, because, like, for all of us who understand that that happens, there's an equal amount of people who don't understand that's a thing yet. And people are slowly learning that, like, hey, all those fans that have liked the WNBA page on Facebook, a lot of those might be fake. And all of these, like, big organizations and stuff like that, who use Facebook and Twitter and YouTube as, like, genuine metrics to determine how popular their product is, they just might have to deal with the fact that something was significantly miscalculated. I noticed the AI stuff was peaked during 2020 and 2021. Yeah, that's because they wanted to run basically a whole public campaign to get people to stay inside, right? And get people on the wave of thinking that, like, hey, if you don't follow all these really insane draconian um, COVID lockdown protocols, you're a bad person. And they knew that their argument was flimsy at best, so they're like, well, let's just brute force it with AI bot accounts, and hope people go along with it, just because it makes it look like there's a ton of support for being in favor of these restrictions, but there really is not. Daily reminder that WNBA exists for degenerate gamblers to rebuild their bankrolls in the summer. You're funny. I always thought it was just a tax write-off for the NBA. I love reading about the financial peril that the WNBA is in, just because it's so interesting. Like, it represents almost like esports tier delusion. You have a product that, like, nobody is objectively watching, but you're so sold on the dream of it being big one day that you just, like, push it anyway, in spite of everything and every logical business decision, to satisfy basically your own ego. I think even disregarding the COVID argument, Mr. Ted says, with so many people on the web equals more fake bots too. These companies make ad revenue off the money of total active users, and the bot accounts drive that sale. Yeah, absolutely. So many things now are based on total eyes watched and user counts and fake hype rather than actual content. Yes, and that's going to be very scary from a business standpoint, because you're going to reach a point of critical mass where the numbers are just so obnoxiously fake that, like, someone's going to start suing. And this is what I brought up with the Motorsport Games thing I found about 2 years ago regarding their Le Mans Virtual Series. I'm like, you can't claim 86 million people watched an R-Factor League. Like, that's more than the NFL Super Bowl. Or, like, it's up there with the NFL Super Bowl over the last 10 years for an R-Factor League. Like, if let's say I'm an investor in that company, which I'm not, but let's pretend I am, I would immediately look at that and be like, that is not right. Like, we're absolutely suing. Like, if you have anyone with even a lick of knowledge in that field, that is the most blatant, open and shut lawsuit ever. Like, it's just completely misleading, at least in my opinion. You know, you have this obscure game that can hardly get 1,000 people playing it on Steam, that 86 million people are watching? No. Come on. Happy Thanksgiving from Toronto, Ontario. Happy Thanksgiving too, my dude. I followed the medical advice of Aaron Rodgers, Kyrie Irving, and Joe Rogan. John Stockton too. Yep, I'm in that boat. I'm very happy I did. A lot of people came forward explaining that the medical advice pushed by the media have made them feel funny or have weird health complications that really only within the past 6 months they're starting to get over. I wonder if McLaren will try and use your Alex Palou video in their court case against Alex. Holy balls. Iceman, holy shit. You were right. That is crazy. I didn't even know what R-Factor was until I watched your Motorsport Game stuff. Yeah, that's actually a really good point. R-Factor 2 came out in 2013, so, like, an entire generation of sim racers do not know or weren't even around for, like, the most recent R-Factor release. You know, when it came out on in quotation, store shelves, right? So the fact that this, like, obscure little niche game that was kind of playing second fiddle to iRacing and Assetto Corsa, somehow it had 86 million viewers of their esports competition. Like I said, if there's an investor well-versed in sim racing who's looking at that, I would immediately sue. And I don't even know what I'd sue for, but I would immediately be calling lawyers and being like, that number's not right. Alex Palou's fake YouTube account is the funniest thing. So I'm going to spoil this one for you guys. I did not find that. I can say this like 3 years down the road, right? 2 years down the road? David Land did not want to lose access to the IndyCar garage area because he was following them around on the tour at the time, right? So he just fed me the story. He's like, I found all this, pretend you found it, take credit for it, whatever. So that was not even my story. Bland just kind of approached me. He's like, hey, I found this thing with Alex Palou. It's piggybacking off what you found with the Mahindra stuff, I think. Like the Mahindra Formula E team that had like a gajillion followers and like 2 comments on their video, so they were obviously view about it too. He's like, hey, there's a bigger story with the fucking IndyCar champion. They literally just took over some other YouTube account that wasn't his and just scrubbed the name, but didn't do a good job of it. Can you do a YouTube video on it? Cool, fine. David Land gets to keep his access to the garage area, and I get my name in the Indy Star. It's weird how stories are shopped around like that, but it's pretty cool. But yes, stuff like that is absolutely a thing. That is a good point, though. I wonder if that'll get brought up. I don't know, guys. We've been doing this for a while. I think it's time to get going. I want to go out and eat. I work tomorrow. I kind of run on European holidays. So I didn't take tomorrow off, even though it's Canadian long weekend. So I do want to go get some food and just hang out. And have a really quiet conclusion to my weekend. Why did David Land give you the story, though? Because, like I said, David Land was touring around with IndyCar at the time. Not like as part of IndyCar staff, but he was going to all the races. The drivers were willing to talk to him, stuff like that. He didn't really want to lose access to Alex Palou and, you know, the ability to, like, interview him after practice and shit like that. So he found it. And it might not have even been him who found it. Like, someone else probably tipped him off about it and it was just, like, talked about. And he didn't want to lose access to that, so he's like, oh, I'll just tell Austin about it. Austin will pretend he found it, take all the credit for it. No one will have any clue that we actually talk on Twitter because no one will know that. And the story will still get out, and nobody that's part of IndyCar's kind of media circus has to deal with that. It'll just be some random dude in Canada who can just pretend he's high and found it when he was bored. Perfect. But anyway, thanks for coming out, guys. I'll probably do more of these like weird random casual streams. They're fun. They're lighthearted. I'll find more replays to watch or just things to do. Maybe I'll stream like a dumb AI game of Madden. But I might do more of this, so thanks for coming out and getting nutty with us.